Good morning, everybody, wherever in the world you are, whether it's nighttime, daytime, or the early morning as it is here on the west coast of LA. We are the west coast of LA, the west coast of America, Drew, in LA. Everybody, it is great to have you with us today. I think it's going to get a little spicy. Drew and I were arguing before the camera started rolling. It's interesting. We've got some stuff to cover today that just brings something out in people. All right, here's the agenda, boys and girls. Peter Thiel calls out the roots of America's socialist turn, which I'm doing my best to be a pragmatic voice on. I like Thiel's take. I'm excited to talk about it. The EU calls Trump daddy. Pete Hegseth gets spicy. AI wins its first copyright lawsuit, and I think this is going to be the first of many. The gaming community is throwing down over the Stop Killing Games movement. That's what Drew and I were arguing about. Crypto can be used as an asset for mortgage qualification. That's very interesting. China launches bug spy drones. They're literally the size of bugs. It's gonna get weird. And people are now gatekeeping romance based on politics, as I would expect. Now, Drew, people are in the chat because they want to know, how do you get somebody to have a baby on the first date?
Oh my goodness.
That,
Go check
that inquiring minds want to know, Drew. Oh, God.
Okay, I think there's like a shift happening in the country, and I really think we should start on this Peter Thiel email because there, after the election, the primaries in New York, Mandani, who was leading on a agenda that had a lot of socialist policies on it, there's been this turn where he has been trying to get deported now. There are people trying to disqualify him from running. There seems to be all this lawfare, warfare, trying to like stop him from like progressing.
Yeah. So first of all, that is always going to be the wrong way to approach a problem. It's the same way I feel about the Stop Killing Games thing. When you have an ideological difference, it's hearts and minds. You got to win hearts and minds. And so the Peter Thiel email is brilliant. I assume you're going to read it because you don't want to try to do the authoritarian thing and stop this from the top down. Both sides now, left and right, seem hell-bent to jail their opponents. At some point, you have to break the cycle and say, listen, I get that the other side was doing it to us. I get that there have been a lot of things that have been done that are wrong. But the momentum when you get into a populist moment is just to keep racing away from each other. And so somebody is going to have to knowingly stop that train and begin to pull us back. Obviously, I'm trying to be a drop in the ocean here of somebody just calling for, hold on a second, these are runaway mechanisms. And if you let them continue in this positive feedback loop where the more somebody does, the more like heavily handed you react. And that doesn't mean that you can turn a blind eye to everything. And I think the real battle is going to be over sanctuary cities. I'll park that for now. That's just a fractal too far.
Yeah, we'll say that. You can't
But anyway,
that.
So going back to the Peter Thiel thing, let's go through the email. I think this is a really sensible thing to say, and this is from 2020. So clegly, this has been something that I think people could see coming for a while.
So this is something he sent out to Mark Zuckerberg, Sharon Schamberg, Mark Andreessen. I don't know who Nick Clegg or Antonio Lucio, but I'm assuming this is all Meta leadership. There are many themes that could be developed more here. Let me have a few quick points for now. Nick, I certainly would not suggest that our policy should be embrace millennial attitudes unreflectively. I would be the last person to advocate for socialism, but when 70% of millennials say they are pro-socialist, we need to do better than simply dismiss them by saying they are stupid or entitled or brainwashed. We should try and understand why. And from the perspective of a broken generational compact, there seems to be a pretty straightforward answer to me. Namely, that when one has too much student debt, or if housing is too unaffordable, that one will have a negative capital for a long time, and or find it very hard to start accumulating capital in the form of real estate. And if one has no stake in the capitalist system, then one may turn against it.
All right, really fast, just because I know that whenever I repeat something over and over, it becomes funny and people may tune out to it, but it is very important to understand the whole point of this podcast is to map cause and effect across the most important issues of our time. There is no accident that what Peter Thiel is talking about in terms of why socialism, why people are turning to that 5 years ago is about debt. This really is an economic question. When economics are good, they're moving in a good direction, and people feel like, oh, my life is going to be economically better than it was in the past because money is the great facilitator. So people have all these dreams. They need money to facilitate those dreams. Could be having kids, could be retiring, taking vacations, whatever. Money is the thing that gives people this sense of, I'm going to be able to do all of that stuff. When you have, as he said, negative capital, and you can't even conceive of how you would ever get on the other side of that, you're going to turn against the system. It's a pretty natural response. And that's the thing that is tempering my emotional response to this swing to socialism. Because there's definitely a part of my brain that just wants to yell that this is dumb. This ends in misery for all of the people that are championing it. But I think Thiel is rightly pointing out, if you put people into that situation, humans have a nature. That nature is going to respond predictably to being in that negative capital situation. The way that they'll respond is to want to burn the system down. Mm-hmm. And socialism, communism give them the path out of that. It's a mythical path, but it's better than the hopelessness of being like, well, I'm just trapped in this forever. Mm-hmm. And it is cold comfort to any of us that history will eventually swing out of these dark times when you know that it could be dark for multiple generations to be sure, but I mean, you could be north of 100 years in some cases. So now you're swallowing 5 generations. So it just isn't going to matter to people that one day, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, maybe this will be better. For my grandkids, this is going to be wonderful. For me, it sucks. And I'm going to respond emotionally, not with intention, not like I'm going to go out of my way to say, I would like to now have an emotional response. A thing is happening. You feel some kind of way. Emotions are literally evolutionarily designed to make sure that you will take bold action even when you don't understand something, because evolution understands that you're never going to have perfect information. But if you hear a rustling in the bush, you can't sit there and be like, well, did that sound exactly like? Yeah. You've just got to go rustle, emotion, act on that emotion, get the hell out of there. You can worry about the details later.
Yeah.
So.
And then he went on to say, what I would add to Mark's summary is that in a healthier society, the handover from the boomers to the younger generations should have started some time ago. Maybe as early as the 1990s for Gen X. And for that, a whole variety of reasons, this generational transition has been delayed as the boomers have maintained an iron grip on many U.S. institutions. When the handover finally happens in the 2020s, it will therefore happen more suddenly and perhaps more dramatically than people expect, or than such generational transitions have happened in the past. And that's why it's essentially important for us to think about these issues and try to get ahead of them.
All right, pause for a sec. So this is something Eric Weinstein, who's going to get a shout out here in the email in a second, has been talking about for a very long time. And this was the first thing that I disagreed with Eric on. The reality is that no generation ever in history has willingly handed power over. It has to be taken from them with a surge of youthful enthusiasm, new vision, a better understanding of where the world is. And it was structurally set up such that boomers were going to keep an iron grip on power for so long because of the size of their generation. And so between the moment that they came into power based on the debt cycle, so that they were going to be in a position where things were reasonably priced for them, that they could flee into assets, that as things were inflated into nothing, that the expense of their debt went down and the asset prices that they were holding went up, and that it was going to choke out everybody that came after them. I mean, this is just like the physics of the economic system that we have, modern monetary theory. So I always, when they talk about this, I always bump up against it because I think they're framing this moment in a weird way. The right way to frame it is, dear young people, you have to have a compelling vision that people are going to get behind. Now, that's why socialism is terrifying. It's an emotionally compelling vision that's going to have disastrous outcomes. But this, at least, Mamdani represents that compelling vision. He's painting a compelling vision, and that's exactly why he's rising up in politics.
One example of such an iron grip, continuing into the email, from my colleague Eric Weinstein of the 67 top research universities in the U.S., 62 have baby boomer presidents, 3 are silent generation, and 2 are Generation X. Today, the median age of these 67 university presidents is 65 years old, and this is very different from the recent past. Only 30 years ago, in 1990, the median age of these same university presidents was much lower, 52 years old. The older generation did not completely refuse to give up power, and therefore much greater generational diversity was to be found in university leadership. Or to take a small but suggestive example from the US presidential leadership, 3 presidents, Clinton, Bush, and Trump, were all born within 70 days of one another. That's crazy. In the summer of 1946, these 3 people were literally at the head of the baby boomer class that were born 9 months after World War II ended in September 1945. In my mind, they somehow derive much of their power from the self-reflection narcissism of the boomers, as this unusually large cohort of people voted for people like themselves and could afford to ignore anyone younger. And again, this iron grip has been maintained for a shockingly long period of time, but it will not be maintained forever.
Okay, so one thing on that, don't click away.
Oh, sorry.
One thing that this goes back to what I was just talking about, that, okay, says they're a unusually large cohort of people that voted for people like themselves. That's what everyone does. That's why I'm saying this is structural. This is not something that's unique to the boomer generation. Everybody, always and forever, will vote for what they see as their best interest. And so there are cultural changes, there are no doubt, that also played a role in this. So for instance, for a long time, people saw their obligation to their kids as like, I'm going to babysit your kids as my parents helped babysit mine. And that was a way that people stayed very engaged with their kids. Also, we didn't live in as informational of an economy. So it was like you worked at a paper mill. And so by the time you were like in your mid 50s, you just couldn't schlep the stuff. And so it became you were retiring just because your body was beginning to break down. And so you would go home and you would invest in sort of that second life of taking care of the next generation, largely because of physical changes that just made it impossible for you to keep up with young people. So now that we have a more information-led economy where wisdom is incredibly valuable, that's how they're keeping this quote unquote iron grip on power. But if people don't address the issue at the level of cause and effect, they're going to be surprised again about how all of this is going to play out. So I love that Thiel has his finger on the cause and effect from how why young people are turning towards socialism. I really hope we can help young people map cause and effect economically to see where socialism ends up going, because it is not going to be the thing that makes their lives thrive, nor the lives of their children. But we also have to contend with, we're now an information economy where people's bodies aren't wearing out and sort of bumping them out. Also, with medical breakthroughs, you're going to see more and more of that. And so this really is going to be something where we have to switch over to, there is a North Star we're steering towards, there's measurable KPIs, and we're going to look at those KPIs. Instead of this, well, behind the scenes, I can wrangle power through political maneuvering, James Burnham, man is political animal, devious Machiavellian stuff, spin and all that. And we need a culture of accountability, KPIs, like, let's really look, are these things working or not?
I think if we actually look at the KPIs, what's that proverb? If a child is not embraced, then they'll burn down the village to feel its warmth.
Yep.
I think this is what's happening right now. I think in the 70s, the generation before us was like, yeah, we're not going to care about what happens after this. We're going to double down on this. We derived from the gold standard. That was the influx of crony capitalism. That's when wages and productivity stopped tracking. That's when housing market started to boom and bust. That's when food ingredients started to diversify.
Give me what you think the cause and effect is.
The cause is I see a once in a generational opportunity. I'm going to seize this for the betterment of my individual self. The religion of the dollar kind of was instituted at that point, because I think 1970s is really the time I'm outlining. Like, that was the time where things started to like break.
What I hear you saying is that humans didn't used to be selfish, and now in the 70s they became selfish.
I think it was an opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm saying you have to address the structural. Everyone is always and forever going to take advantage of the opportunities that they see. That's what we should want them to do. We should want people, these are going to be words that people don't like, but this is what you should want people to do. You should want them to exploit the opportunities that they see. That is the innovation. What you want to make sure that you're taking care of is that you don't create these perverse opportunities, which is what we're doing with a system where we rack up debt and we print money. And so this all comes back to, what is that structural thing that we're doing that ends up creating all these boom and bust cycles and all this weirdness? Because people will exploit those opportunities. And this is largely why socialism and communism fail, is people will still go exploit those opportunities. They realize, oh, if I can gain power, I'll be one of the people that get to eat while everybody else is starving to death. And so everybody...
But I think that's happening now, though. So I think that the worry that we have with socialism and communism, and by no means, I'm not a communist. By no means, I'm not a socialist. I just feel like I need to say that because I keep seeing Commie Drew. However, though, like capitalism fundamentally changed in the 70s. It's no longer pure free market capitalism.
It didn't change in the 70s, Drew. It changed in 1913 when they passed. This is what I'm saying. You've got to get back. It's like a thing occurred. So take my skin cancer. My skin cancer did not occur in 2025. My skin cancer started occurring, I mean this sincerely, when I married a Greek girl who just cannot help herself. She's got to be in the sun all the fucking time. And so me wanting to impress my girlfriend, then wife, I was like, always, oh God, like doing all this fancy stuff, trying to like make sure I laid down a base tan so I could spend more time with her, like walking on beaches and stuff like that. And that's how I got skin cancer. And if I think this is a 2025 problem and not a 2000 problem when I fell in love with somebody who genetically has better skin, resilience to the sun, I'm going to be confused and I won't understand how to combat the problem. So yes, I get that the economic version of skin cancer you can point to, and it's technically 1971. You can see it on every graph when we broke our marriage only partially to gold, because we were already long since largely divorced from gold, but we broke that final strand. If you actually track back to those things, then we have a hope of adjusting the system so that we don't end up there again in the future, just running this cycle over and over, as we have been doing for the last 500 plus years.
The reason I'm earmarking on the 71 is because that is when, in my opinion, structures change, incentives change. Whatever the thing was, capitalism was one way from 1913 to 1970, and it's another way from 1971 to 2025. At that break, that's when I'm not even gonna call it capitalism, that's when this hybrid system started to kind of reoccur. I think what's happening right now is there's an older generation that sees this younger generation trying to pull resources, do something different, and you guys are calling socialism, communism, you're trying to give us the worst case scenario so the system doesn't change because it fundamentally benefits you. Just like you just said, no generation is going to willingly give up power. It's very easy for the people who have all the assets to say, no, guys, we shouldn't pull assets. And the people who have no assets to say, hey, guys, we should pull assets. It's just like it's common math.
Yeah, I want to put myself in your shoes. Here's what I'm hearing. I cannot get on the property ladder. I look at what's going to happen to my daughter. She's not going to be able to get on the property ladder. I would much rather see the mother of all bombs dropped on this economic system just to break it up.
No.
We'll see what happens on the other side.
Absolutely not. I think that there could be a difference. I think that there
could be a difference what?
I think there could be a difference between what system we have right now and what's in socialism, where we end up eating babies and the economy implodes. I think capitalism right now, the social nets that we have are being funneled out by NGOs. The Medicare fraud, Medicaid, like that's why a lot of these healthcare costs, it doesn't make sense. Like we shouldn't be paying $600 for an x-ray machine when the x-ray machine was a fixed cost instrument is being called. But because insurance has that cap, it's been being manipulated. So in every part of the system, there's these manipulations that are increasing the cost for the consumer.
Yes.
Now, when the capitalist walks in, he says, hey man, those are just my margins. I got to do what I got to do. Understood. But then now you're charging the government 2 times, 3 times more than you would charge a regular person, which is making the burden on the system stress, which is increasing the tax burden, which is increasing the debt. So
you see this, if you were writing a deep dive, you'd be like, man, fuck all this Federal Reserve stuff. Like you're confusing yourself. The real issue is the way that capitalists think about the system and the way that in this late stage, they're manipulating their profits. And that's the real problem.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but the argument that we had with the Stop Killing Games movement thing, where you were like, fundamentally from your perspective, you're saying, hey guys, if you don't like the system, you can vote with your money, you can move things out, and then you can change it, and that's how things are made. Yep. And then the 70s and 80s, that was correct. But now with all these monetary systems on top of monetary systems on top of monetary systems, 1/3 of these companies are about to be all Bitcoin companies. It's not even going to matter what I pay into it. They're just going to have assets that depreciate, and they're not going to need the consumers to dictate.
But Drew, you've really got to get down to the next layer. If you're not at cause and effect, you're always going to be at the level of trying to manipulate the the end stage problem. So there is a very terrifying documentary about plane crashes. In the documentary about plane crashes, they're playing the black box recordings. Now, there was this really fascinating one where this guy allowed his kids to come up into the cockpit. He did not realize one of his kids bumped the autopilot on. And so all of the things that he knows about how to steer a plane when autopilot is off, like go into the ether. And so he keeps overcorrecting and the plane ends up crashing. And he just cannot figure out why every time he steers one way, the plane just ends up steering back. And so he puts the plane into this weird topsy-turvy thing until it crashes. If he had either turned autopilot off, it would have worked fine. If he had let go of the steering wheel, it would have worked fine. But doing both ends up causing the crash. The root of the issue is that autopilot is on. If we don't get to the root of the issue is that you've created a system in which you must continue to accrue debt. The debt becomes unserviceable and the whole system begins breaking apart. If you don't address that, which I don't hear you saying, I hear you saying, these late stage capitalists, we need to fucking like find out how to stop them from doing this evil shit. And I'm saying that's the oversteering. Autopilot is on. If you keep grabbing the wheel, you're just going to crash things faster. You must get to the point where you realize, the problem is that we have a fiat currency that can be abused and will be abused. We have 500 years of history to say humans have had 500 years to prove that they can stop themselves from printing money into an abusive range, and they've shown that they cannot. And so debt moves the world in a cycle. But if we don't understand, this is just, we live in a deterministic universe, which means that people respond to a known stimulus in a known way, and we respond to debt in a known way. It will drive inequality for sure, and humans will respond emotionally to that inequality, and they will fight over that inequality. And so it's like, that's what we have. And once you start pointing at anything on the surface, you're going to try to control that thing. And that's like symptom management instead of curing the disease.
All right, I have another plane analogy for you. You read Outliers, right? And Malcolm Gladwell tracked how there was a disproportionately amount of plane crashes. I think it was Korea. South Korea, yes. And in that example, for people who don't know, the problem was that the co-pilot sometimes would be he would defer so much respect to the main pilot that he would not tell him, hey, the system is wrong, or hey, there's something going on. So much so that he would go down with the plane, all to like in order to respect and the deference to the thing.
Multiple black boxes from South Korean Airlines.
I bring that example up to say, I think right now there's this deference that we're placing to capitalism that like, nope, we can't, because if we criminalize it, we're going to crash. Nope. And I think that we need to be honest and say, hey, there are people, boomers, who you guys had it easy. It was a great time. And I think that we keep yelling at this generation. We keep looking at Gen Alpha and Gen Z and say, these are the weak men that are going to create hard times right here. I'm going to put it on the 80s. I think the 80s and the 90s had a bunch of men who had good times and things was good and money was rolling. And those are the men that are now creating weak times. And I think that right now we're in that time where the strong men are starting to rise from it, and it looks fundamentally different than what happened in the 70s and 80s. I do think there's a gap between everybody takes your stuff, top-down authoritarianism, and where we are right now.
I agree. And I'm not even sure at where we would disagree if we were going to build a plan to make this all work. Maybe you and I would be 100% on the same page. The only thing, because I agree with you, capitalism, our system right now is broken. It isn't a capitalistic system, so I won't say capitalism is broken, but our current bizarre hybrid system is totally destroyed. It's a known cycle from history that has to do with debt and money printing, but that system moves through a 6-phase cycle. Only one of the phases is healthy. All the other 5 are stages of disease. We are not in phase 1, which means we are in a stage of disease. The bad news is we're late stage 5, so we are like fucking deathbed, not good, septic system, the whole thing, septic shock. So now, if we're building back from that, all I'm saying is don't keep giving them antibiotics to deal with the toxic blood. Figure out why they're getting toxic in the first place and address that. Because if this person is bathing in a sewer system, You can give them all the antibiotics you want. It's just going to keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. So I'm saying, let's pull people out of the septic system. Let's get them to learn modern hygiene, take showers, et cetera, et cetera. And that's hard money. And a lot of these problems end up curing themselves over time. So again, if anybody ever argues for anything that does not promote a thriving middle class, they're voting for their own demise. So for me, the most selfish thing as a wealthy person, the most selfish thing is to make sure that there is tremendous mobility from poor to middle to upper, from upper to middle to lower. So people need to be able to move up and they need to be able to move down. We have created a system due to fiat money that just pulls them apart, absolutely eviscerates the middle class. So we have to back up, reharden money. But if we're not doing it at the level of abolish the Fed, blah, 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 like it's not going to fix.
What's your take on this? Frank2222 said, the only way out of this is to bring true AGI to fruition and reach for infinite abundance. The problem is getting to the other side.
I'm going to call BS on that, because what's actually going to happen is AI companies are going to optimize their robots. They're going to replace the workforce. And just like Tom has said repeatedly, labor is the number one cost. So if instead of me paying an actual person $100,000, I could pay a robot $40,000, everybody's going to do that. A bunch of people are going to be unemployed. A bunch of people who are unemployed won't be able to afford the system. The haves and the have-nots are going to continue to keep splitting. And the people that got it, and they're just going to keep looking at the have-nots. I'm like, y'all guys need to work harder. And we're just going to do this for 30 more years. And that's what's going to happen.
It'll play out slightly differently than that, but that is certainly the interim. The interim is bloodbath. So it will be, I don't know if it will tear at the system hard enough that the system just flies apart and that stops the technological evolution. That's very possible. Or if we are able to make the transition fast enough that people realize, oh, wait a second, I'm not making a lot of money, but I don't need a lot of money. And so I can get all the things that I need for cheap. But this is why we have to break people of this illusion that deflation is bad. Deflation is your best friend. Deflation is the thing that you should pray for every night. You just don't want crisis-led deflation. You want innovation-led deflation. When people are panicking and they're terrified and they're not spending money for that reason, that's crisis-led deflation. When people are like, oh my God, I can get a car for $1.50? This is amazing. That's when things get good. And you can imagine when a robo-taxi doesn't have a driver, the cost of transportation just went down. You no longer need insurance because the robo-taxi is taking care of that. So now you're just paying for the ride. And when companies realize, oh, the cost of this stuff is very low, I can just beat the next guy on price and they can drive prices down. Now, the part that Drew's talking about is that assets are the place that you go to flee from the inflation that will almost certainly happen as we start money printing like crazy as people are losing their jobs. And that's where it's like, if people don't listen to Ray Dalio and his breakdown of how to do a beautiful deleveraging, we will get the nightmare scenario that Drew is expecting.
So
a Waymo costs more than a Lyft.
For now.
If deflation is the way out systemically, then if deflation doesn't happen, what's the way out for the individual?
Sorry, say that again?
If deflation is the way out of this systemically.
Yeah, at an innovation level, we always must say that.
Then what's the way out for the individual if that doesn't happen?
Oh, if it doesn't happen, you have to go back to hard money. So watch the...
For the individual, like what can a person do?
You have to harden your money. Buy gold, buy Bitcoin. Like you must be in a hard money system, even if you have to like break away from what everybody else thinks is sane. You've got to find a way to match or beat, ideally, inflation. But to beat inflation, you're really going to gamble. And gold is a big enough gamble already. Crypto is an even bigger gamble than gold. So be very, very careful because there is volatility in the system. Much less so in gold. Gold over time, for a very long time, it's been rare. Not that it's never happened, but it's been rare that gold has stayed depressed unusually for an extended period of time. Again, it has happened. It's just not very often. So an ounce, I forget the exact amount. Something like an ounce of gold buys you a nice suit. And it bought you a nice toga 2,000 years ago, and it buys you a nice three-piece suit today. It's just I forget if it may not be announced, but you get the idea. A known quantity of gold buys a known thing. A known quantity of gold that used to buy you a nice meal still buys you a nice meal. Known quantity of gold that used to buy you a nice suit still buys you a nice suit. So that's one way to eject out of the typical system.
Can you give me a proper definition for deflation?
Deflation is where prices go down. The cost of your TV becomes less. The cost of your sandwich becomes less. Deflation is literally the amount of money in supply is going down compared to the availability of goods instead of going up. So there are so many goods being made that it's just like, oh, to get you to buy this car, this flat screen, this whatever, I'm going to lower prices. The most awesome way to get there is to be able to make things cheaper and cheaper and cheaper because you're using expertise to get more productivity out of a worker's hour, whether that worker is human or that worker is a robot. That doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter to the lifestyle of somebody who has enough money to engage in the economic system. Now, we've never gone through something where all of a sudden 50% of people don't have a job. So this is an unknown. And anybody that is terrified of what this might look like in the short term, I get it. I don't know what's going to happen for sure. So obviously, I hope that it's wonderful and all of that. Okay, Drew, I feel like we've been on this for quite some time here.
I got one more thing. Jack Mahler said,
Drew and I have agreed off camera not to stay on topics too long.
Sorry.
Okay.
Last thing.
Yep.
Jack Mahler said that in the 70s, what actually happened in America is we stopped making things and we started making money. The only thing that America actually generates is money and software at this point. That's what we're exporting to.
Yeah,
like,
but that happened in the 1800s, late 1700s.
So but that's when M2 supplies exploded, skyrocketed, red blue thing. It's not just COVID and like the 2008 housing bubble, but steadily since that time. There has to be a reduction in the monetary supply in order to reset a lot of these scales. Do you think that would ever be possible?
It's not quite true. There has to be a reduction in the ratio of money supplied to goods. And this is why Frank is saying that the way out of this, and it's not the only way, but the most optimistic, hopeful way is that we get so much productivity out of AI that everything just becomes so cheap that it's just easy for people to live. So you can imagine if you're walking down the street and it's like, okay, this homeless person, I might as well give him a car. In the same way that you would give him $20, like we're now living in a totally different world. So that's really utopian thinking, and we have to be careful. While we can all see the trajectory, Jan LeCun is my sobriety mechanism, and he's like, it's not going to happen until you find a new type of AI. So let's just all be very careful and not overplay our hand of like the utopia is on its way. I certainly hope. Wouldn't that be amazing? But the reality is we really might be up against the style of AI right now that will not understand physics. If it cannot come to understand physics, then it will stall out.
Copy. Last question on this topic. With that, because I'm not gonna lie, I tried to set you up, but you didn't go for the bait. I think that there's a perversion in the system that it's now about money and it's less about value to the consumer. And
what do you mean by that? Are you back to the financialization of the world?
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about that historically because it's really interesting. So part of the reason that people hate the Rothschild family is they were, I won't say that they invented it, but they were the first people to really capitalize on the fact that financial instruments, the financialization of the world, gave power to paper money in the way that for 10,000, 15,000 years, it had been about land ownership. And so you suddenly had a much easier way for somebody to move classes. And it began to change the world in real time. And people looked at the first generation of Rothschild children. So there was Meyer Anschel, who's like literally the father. When we think of the Rothschilds, we're talking about him. And then his 5 kids are like the super famous ones, mostly Nathan in England. But all of them were seen as uncouth because they weren't from the gentry. they realized, oh, this money thing, you can really use this to move like things around. And if you play your cards right, you can get like these crazy compounding returns on your money. And so that changed the world. But that happened in the late 1700s. So this is not a new phenomenon. It's just reaching this fever pitch because money has become so detached from reality in that you can just make more of it, more of it, more of it. And that more of it, more of it, more of it has a toxic effect.
And I think that's the point I'm trying to make now, is that it's pegged to that as opposed to
What's it's?
I think that's where a lot of this fever pitch is that people feel like life is now surrounded about, I need to make as much money as possible, and it's no longer providing value to the consumer, things like that. And when people don't have access to that capital, they then get frustrated and they are trying to get access to the capital, and they kind of feel left out of those things. They're not on the same wealth ladders. They're not able to accumulate assets. They're not able to just participate in the capitalist system.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something to the on-ramps kind of being moved, the goalposts being moved now. And instead of now housing being 25% of my income, it's now 50% of my income.
You and I totally agree.
Yeah.
100%. We don't agree on what needs to happen. I think we just disagree on what you have to do to get there. So what needs to happen is housing, the only asset that people understand. The average person understands a house. I buy a house, I make memories, it keeps me warm, keeps rain from falling on me. I can raise my kids in it. There's such a deep intuition around houses. If you build a survival game, what is the first thing you know you're supposed to do? Build shelter. I mean, it's just like this is baked into our DNA. If you don't make houses specifically, fuck everything else. This is why I get so angry when people are like, whoa, Bitcoin exists. Yes, but people can't live in a fucking Bitcoin. So they don't have an intuitive understanding of it. If I could just get, like, who was it, CZ, that recently said, the American dream is to buy a house. In the future, the American dream will be to own 0.1 Bitcoin because it will be worth more than a house. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, people don't have the intuitive understanding of why that's going to be useful. And by the way, it's only useful down the road. It's not useful today. A house is useful today. So houses must become financially accessible. People, the average person working the average job, needs to be able to buy an average house. Mm-hmm. So we must solve for that problem. People need to feel like they can afford children. Absolute must. There's more, but I'll stop there. Like, to get a thriving middle class back, those things must become true. Now, where you and I disagree is you're saying, stop playing the game so well, dear capitalists. And you really are. Anybody who says, like, they're no longer being good to the customer or whatever, it's like your impulse is to look at a game with terrible rules. And instead of going, what do we have to do to change the rules of the game? You're trying to impose top down, even though this rule exists, a better way to explain it. Birds can fly. Because they can fly, they do fly. And they use that to their advantage. People that understand the capitalist system fly. And there are people that, because they don't understand the capitalist system, they're like a cow. They can't fly. And so the cow is now looking up at the birds and they're fucking mad because birds can fly and they don't understand why they can't fly. And the reality is you could. If you understood how the system works, you could. And that's exactly why there have been the Bitcoin bros that ended up getting stupid wealthy. This is why there will be a kid born today that, if nothing changes, will still get rich off of the system as it is, even though it's super broken, because he has the intellect to understand how to invest. And he'll just go, oh, this is how you make money, and he'll make money. So this becomes a problem of humans have a nature. The thing that they understand is a house. Once a house is out of reach, it's game over.
A good example I like to use, right, is rappers for example, right? A rapper in the 80s, all you had to do was rhyme. I put my hat on and go to the hat store and buy myself a hat. That was it. You can sell platinum. You'll make $1 million. You'll never have to work again. Rapper nowadays, like J. Cole, Kendrick, they have to produce, they have to write, they have to tour, they have to merchandise, they have to be on social media, they have to do all these other things. Yeah. It is fundamentally harder to be a rapper than it was back in the day. So I understand that with time, inflation, things like that, it gets more difficult to get ahead in life, and there's things that are happening. I hate that we are acting like there isn't perversions to the system, or there isn't a.
Who is acting like that? You and I are both screaming from the rooftops. The system is perverted.
No.
We have a problem.
You just went back to the whole rules. Okay. So because I know that there's only one ref on the court, I'm using my teammate to distract that ref while this person is kind of punching me in the gut.
Yes.
And
all I'm saying is hurt. I get it. What I'm saying is no matter what system you do, people will find the edges. People will try to cheat it. Stop trying to stop people from cheating a system. It is in human nature to do that. Make a system that is resistant to cheating. Don't create a system that is fucking, there are leaks everywhere. And then be like, oh God, like, how do we police this? These evil people that are like going through all the holes. Instead of trying to build a fucking army of people to police all the holes, make a system that doesn't have fucking holes. Now, if it were a mystery as to what causes the holes, okay, then we'd have to be like, I don't know why this happens, but it does. And so we just have to police them all. Great. We understand what creates the holes, and we're still not doing anything about it. That's the part that drives me crazy. And here's the really bad news. The reason this moves in cycles is people like me never get listened to because the average person is just trying to fall in love, live their life, raise their kids. They do not want to spend the time to wrap their heads around it. And I get it. I have deep empathy. I want to always acknowledge, as the island of my knowledge grows, so grows the shore of my ignorance. Every bit of this I learn, I realize how much more of this I don't understand still. But given that it's taken me 5 years to even have the level of understanding that I have, tells me the vast majority of humanity is never going to do this. So this is a political problem. This is man is political animal. This is Mom Donnie. This is, I know it works to promise people things for free. And the only way to pay for the free things is to have fiat money that's not backed by a hard currency, to break that and to be able to money print and spend at deficit levels, knowing people will not understand that I'm making up the difference by stealing that money from them through inflation, and that inflation hurts the poor and middle class the most. And so it's like they keep voting for the system that is literally enslaving them. It is a tragedy. And I don't blame the people. It's very complicated. But nonetheless, like, what do you do when you're watching this train wreck unfold and you can see that it's happening? And yet you're like, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to be able to stop this.
Red light. We got a bunch.
We got a couple of super chats.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I do want to
Super
set
chat.
up one other chat first, though, because I think your answer will lead into the super chats. Ricky Martinez said, what can someone do when they can't buy assets? That's the real question. And a few other people were saying, like, what about for the consumers? The people that
Everybody that can save $10 can buy an asset. It's people don't understand them.
and do that over time so it compounds?
Correct.
Gotcha.
There's the famous story of the janitor who died with like $2 million to his name because he just invested in like the S&P 500. You don't have to be fancy. Just take any amount that you can possibly bear and put it into the S&P 500. Just as a super dumb way, over 20 or 30 years, that's going to stack. I don't know that there's ever been a 30-year stretch in the last like 120 years where you wouldn't have been up. Almost no one on a long enough timeline beats the S&P 500. It's just put your money in and chill. The problem is people want the money right now.
Got it. And to get that $10 to put in, build your skills so that you can
go to
make
work,
money.
get a job, and spend less than you make, and then take some of that delta and put it into an investment. I'm not saying that it's easy. You're going to have to tighten your belt. I'm just saying, as broken as the system is, when you start saying things like, well, what about the people that can't afford to put money into the system? It's like, there are people that can't for sure, but most of them are going to have gotten themselves in over their head in some way. Drugs, kids way too early. Yeah, although you now for sure could, but I get it. And even that, like most people will be able to overcome that. But I'm just saying that one I get, it's very taxing, especially if you're a single parent. So there are ways to do it, but most of those ways are pretty avoidable for all but a small number of people. Mental illness is devastating, and I don't wish it on anybody. Quite literally, mental illness, I don't wish on anybody. There are some things that I say I don't wish on people, but secretly I've got a handful of people I'm wishing it on them, but not mental illness.
First super chat from Truth Devon for $27.99 Canadian, not Californian.
Truth Devon, who's 6'3" and has 100 girls, and
6'3" and a half, Drew.
My bad,
How dare you?
Sorry.
Trying to shave inches off, Truth.
I'll take off that.
Man, people come for you, Truth. Shit.
He said, just paying my tuition to the best stream for my brain. What is the best hard skill you think that makes you money by providing services or getting a job that has a lot of room for growth? I have a degree in economics and finance.
The only thing that matters in life is the ability to map cause and effect accurately, have the discipline to act upon it, and point those abilities at something that people will pay you to do. That is the string of life. And much like investments, I lost most people in the first couple of words, and so they won't do it. But that really is it. Like when you can anticipate the outcome of your actions, ooh, buddy, like you're really doing something. And then if you can go into a workplace, even if you don't want to run the company, if you can go into a workplace and say, I see a thing you don't see about why you're not making as much money as you could, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And then when they do that, it actually works. That person is going to make money for all time. The problem is that's an intellectual game, meaning you actually have to have the intellectual horsepower. And a big problem that we have is a lot of people, I mean, you just take a Bell distribution, whatever, 49% of the world is going to be below average. So at some point, as you slide down that scale, they're just not going to be able to run that at a meaningful level. And so you have problems. And that's why I'm saying the things that humans do intuitively, you have to make accessible. That is how you have a thriving middle class. Like where I grew up, admittedly, we were probably lower middle class, but nonetheless, like I grew up around farmers, pipe fitters, blue collar workers, bus drivers, mechanics. Like that was my neighborhood. But we had a neighborhood and we had houses, and they weren't fancy, but they were fucking houses. It's like everybody understood that. Do that. And when you do that, now it's like, cool. I've got the thing that goes up in value with inflation.
BlackRock didn't own houses back then, though.
Yeah, correct. So this is I don't know, that feels like a gotcha for you.
No, I'm trolling.
But hold on. So on that, I love that. So now you want to talk about regulations that make sense. Cool. Don't try to mandate that like you're lower income, so we're going to give you loans that we otherwise shouldn't give you. That's bound to end in disaster. What you do is say, we don't let corporations buy single family homes in excess of whatever number. And then you just go, cool. We don't overregulate builders so that they can make houses, so that the cost to make a house goes down. When the cost to make a house goes down, the cost to buy a house goes down. So doing things like that. Remember, I'm not a no government guy. I like me a very intelligent regulation that is designed to build a system that has less holes. What I'm not here for is the authoritarian policing of the holes that exist in the system. Fix the system.
We've got 3 more super chats. Next from Necro Giggles 13.
Necro Giggles.
That might be.
Let's go. I'm scared.
That's a funny one.
But all right, hit me.
For $20, the government's job should be to keep the rules of the game fair and ensure competition is working. A lot of what we're dealing with now just feels like monopolies dominating the system.
Yes, he's certainly right on the first part. How much of this? This is Drew's beef. Your broken system has created so many perverse capitalists. It's not the right word, but it'll do as a stand-in.
AT&T and Spectrum. I know this is a
no,
personal
trust
example.
me, I was thinking about that.
It's a personal example. Yeah. You can't start new internet companies. Google tried it. They went to 6 different markets.
Yeah,
they got shut down.
Starlink. My thing is just impatience. So
satellite different than like fiber.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like the weight.
There's a technological disadvantage from satellites to fiber
for today. But if he makes enough money, he'll keep innovating. I mean, there's no way to regulate out of existence that some things are going to be very hard to do. But the exact thing you want to do is fill the void. You want to come into that space where there is no solution and go, I'm going to do that really hard thing. That's what you want to incentivize the system. You do not want to try to underhand pitch for people. That's not real life. You want to say, hey, if you can learn how to hit this fastball, great. It's going to be better for all of us.
Yes, the point I'm making specifically for AT&T Spectrum like that is that satellite companies, internet companies, are technologically disadvantaged because satellite, the range, the things like that, it's slower bandwidth than hard lines, fiber, copper, things like that.
Well, the speed of light is so fast, I don't know if you're going to notice, which is certainly what Elon is saying.
Yeah, there's definitely a cap between you can't, as it stands right now, the technology that physically exists, satellite companies, they're at one point, they're getting an average of like 25 megabytes versus when Spectrum.
Yeah, but it's going up.
So we'll wait for it to get there, but.
Yeah. Give me your argument in a single sentence because I'm confused.
There would be more internet companies in local communities that are hardwired if governments didn't stop new incoming ISPs to try to compete.
I love it. Less regulation. Yay. No beef.
That's it.
Ipso facto.
I was trying to set you up with the Spectrum thing to say that that's an example of. Yeah.
It is super annoying, and I'm totally on board with less regulation. Word. All right, Drew, we got to move on.
Yes,
We've got several more super chats and more coming in as we speak.
We're trying to move on. Everybody keeps wanting to talk about it.
Yeah. Andrew W. for $25 said, billionaires, megacorps, lobbyists, etc., all skewing governments. All of that gets better with smaller scale. Debt is a symptom of capitalism at scale. Should we consider debt the lethal symptom of aggregating too much?
No, debt is the symptom of fiat money. You keep it in check when it's a hard currency and there's just no more money to lend you. And so now people start to be like, who am I actually going to give this loan to? When you have fiat money, you have bailouts. When you have bailouts, you have the robbing of the poor middle class and giving to the rich. It's just all of the problems that we see map one for one with a debt money printing system, period. And everything else, as far as I can tell, is just downstream of that. Downstream of that, and man is political animal.
Next up from Dan Clark for $19.99. Tom, please clip that entire section about $10 compounding so I can send it to my friends. So many people can't seem to comprehend that concept. Dan, I got you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mason. Dan, I feel your pain. It's people don't have an intuition for the stock market. They don't have an intuition for compounding interest, and it's just boring. And so the idea of giving $10 every paycheck to something that's boring and way out in the future. They did the marshmallow experiment back in the 60s or 70s, and they ended up tracking those kids for like 30 years. And the kids that could wait the longest to get the reward of the second marshmallow, they ended up doing better in life. I forget who came up with it originally, but I heard this from Alex Hormozy, that there are 3 things that make for hyper successful people. Number 1 is a delusional belief in yourself that you can pull it off. Number 2 is a crushing fear that you're inadequate. And number 3 is the ability to delay gratification. And so if you can like suffer for something that's way out in the future, you're going to murder. And most people can't do that.
It's the book Everyday Millionaire that there's a large swath of people who just invest every day, close your eyes for 30 years, and then wake up and you're good. But it's the 30-year part that people don't want to close their eyes and wait.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It's way more fun to get rich fast. I get it, but good luck.
Last super chat from Sequoia Hall for $20. Would
Thank
love
you,
for you
by
to
the way,
take a
everybody,
deep
for
dive
the
into
super
what
chats.
programs for
Yeah,
home
super
ownership
chat.
in the U.S. have actually worked. Almost everything has examples, lots of data, however, most pre-pandemic.
I would have to do a deep dive on that because off the top of my head, I have no idea if any of them have actually worked other than just lower interest rates. So if you lower interest rates, people are going to buy houses like crazy. But the problem is, as Drew very wisely points out, that what you end up doing is the people that have accrued capital, that understand how to play the game of capital, they end up buying everything in corporations. So, and then they can manipulate the system in terms of controlling supply and demand, going into a neighborhood, buying everything up, holding rents like a cartel. So create problems.
There's reverse rent control in the sense that if I buy up a community, I can now hold those rents to a certain spot, and now that property value won't drop. And that's beneficial to me, the asset holder, but not to the community in general at large. So I understand when Mandani is trying to do it and say, hey, I want to do rent control the opposite way. And I think that that's the equal and opposite force that we're seeing. And it's less everybody in the United States need to do that, and more so, this is skewing one way. I'm trying to counterbalance it into the other way.
Yes, the problem is that the counterbalance that they're offering is emotional. So on one side, you have blatant manipulation by bankers who understand how to take advantage of people that don't understand. And if you think anything is happening other than that, you are out of your mind. They understand the system. And I'm telling you from experience, as you come to understand how the system actually works, you start going, oh, people are never going to understand this. And so you respond to that in one of two ways. You go, wahaha, no one's ever going to understand this. And so I'm going to fucking take advantage.
Thank you for saying that. Because I appreciate that. Because there's a lot of people that are like, no, capitalism is perfect. No, everybody has good intentions. And there are people who are like, nobody sees this. Nobody sees this. Quick, get the money.
If you don't hear them doing what Ray Dalio is doing, they only have bad intentions. Not only, they're selfish with no concern for the fact that other people won't understand it. They know what they can get away with. Like, they know what they can get away with. It's insane. And they're going to keep getting away with it, Drew, because it's so fucking complicated. I can scream into the void as much as I want. It's so complicated. People are just going to tune it out. That's why the system must protect what people intuitively understand. The only thing people intuitively understand is save my fucking money, buy a house. That's it. That's why that's the American dream. Man, work a job, save your money, buy a house, raise your kids. People get it. There are evolutionarily placed mechanisms deep in the brain that make you want to do a small handful of things. Fall in love, have sex, have kids, have a house that protects you, work hard to be appreciated for something as you make progress towards something that matters to you. That's the game. And when you make it impossible for people to play that game, you derange the system and you end up with open revolt. It is just predictable because humans have a nature. We respond in a predictable pattern. We live in a deterministic universe. But part of that determinism, Mason, is that people are going to print money. People are going to rack up debt. They're not going to stop. And then the people, the mustache twirling villains, they're just going to keep making money in the hopes that it's not their house that's ransacked. Like reading about the French Revolution, and you've got people throwing parties while people are being beheaded in the streets, but they're all terrified. They're all miserable. And they're all like, well, if the government's going to collapse, let's have this one last party, and let's just hope it's not our house that's ransacked. It's not fun for anybody. And yet we can't stop ourselves. Okay, we must get to, we can keep talking about socialism and all that, but we got to talk about the games.
I got Pete Hegseth.
God damn it, Drew.
We do have one more super chat if we want to.
Is it on topic? Yeah.
Sort of. It's going back to your deep dive.
I always love for the deep dives. All right, come on, last one. Let's do it.
That's Dancetastic. That's an interesting name. Just finished watching the deep dive for the Fed, and after it ended, I felt the same way I did after reading 1984, wanting to commit Sudoku. I don't want to laugh at that, but that
is the greatest either intentional or unintentional typo ever. I'll take either one, whether he did that on purpose or on accident. I love it.
Great listen, though. Keep up the great work. I still have space in this high chat. And we just got another super chat.
Let's go. Well, Dan's-tastic. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. We definitely take love for the deep dives. All right, we are moving on. We won't ignore the super chat. We'll come back to it, but we absolutely must get forward momentum here.
Pete Hegseth has some spicy words for press. I was here for it. Let's hear it.
Because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard. It's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump. Because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it. Spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours? Has MSNBC done that story? Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is?
All right, pause it. So people, the reporting on this has been like, oh my God, he was unhinged and all that stuff. This wasn't unhinged. This is a guy that understands that either he is naturally, Pete Hegseth was not on my radar as a pundit. I know he worked for Fox. I think so. I had never seen him, so I had no idea who he was. So maybe he's always like this, and maybe that's why Trump hired him or put forth him for nomination. But this is just Trump rhetoric. So leadership sets the tone. He's just falling in line with that. Now, I thought he had a failed attempt to slap the reporter around. So I don't know who she is. I don't know if she's good faith, bad faith, whatever. But he was like, you've been one of the worst. And she was just like, hey, I was the first one to report on the fact that whatever flames came shooting out of the ventilation shaft. And then he was like, yeah, actually, thank you for acknowledging that. So I was like, okay, wait a second. So he's not as good at playing the game as Trump, that is for sure. But boy, would I much rather see this not be an antagonistic relationship, at least not like that. Like journalists should really be trying to hold people's feet to the fire. They should be, first of all, let me say, there is a new thing that exists that is not journalism. What we are doing right now is not journalism. I want to be very clear about that. This is a different thing. I am not trying to be a journalist, nor do I want to see this part of the ecosystem go away, even if I don't do it. Mm-hmm. This, to me, this new thing, podcasting, is, I find fascinating. However, journalists, I would like to continue to play a journalistic role, which they do not. And look, I am well aware that forever there has been a lot of games being played of people trying to control the narrative. But now, especially in an era where there is no one narrative that can be controlled by anybody, I want to see journalists like really go ham with just trying to figure out what's real. Now, I'm new in my exploration of her, but I'm pretty into Barry Weiss and the Free Press. Mm-hmm. You guys will let me know if I'm going to find out that she's a mustache twirling villain. But she seems pretty legit to me. So I want to see people like that are really digging in, that are really doing the thing, that are trying to find out what the facts are on the ground, that they are perfectly happy to find facts that do not fit their narrative. I love that the most. That would be what I would want to see. So
Sunny Delight, I feel like politics are reality TV now, or we're picking between sports teams. Next election, you're going to see tailgate.
Wait, is this what he said or what you're saying?
This is what he said.
This is so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Sunny Delight. Sunny Delight. Nice. That is so accurate. Let's read it one more time, Drew. I feel like politics are reality TV now, or we're picking between sports teams, or both. Next election, you'll see tailgate parties. Yes.
But at the rallies, it was like a tailgate party. Yeah, people were partying.
I think nailed it. Nailed it.
But this is what I really want to say, because at the end of this rant, he talks about how instead of the country saying, yes, we stopped an adversary from obtaining nuclear weapons, go America, let's have a parade, let's wave our flags like we did after World War II. Like, there's now this like, oh, but they didn't get all the bombs.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you guys kind of messed up. And
they really do hate Trump.
Yeah. So there is this kind of like, if Trump like saved a baby, they'll be like, oh, well, he probably touched it inappropriate. It's just like,
Yeah.
Is there something to just a win being a win, or is this just where we are now? And
this is just where we are now. You're not going to get out of this. This is a populist moment. Listen, that's a very defeatist thing of me to say, given that my whole thing is to try to leverage cause and effect mapping to bring people back to the middle. But it really does, in my darker moments, Drew, I'm just like, oh my God. Once people get into their feels and you have the economic setup that they're just, it's going to be constantly reinforced because they really can't get out of the trap. You're going to see people use emotional reasoning exclusively. And once people are using emotional reasoning exclusively, you have a problem. The reality of when there is a revolution, it is the elite moderates that get killed first. That tells you all you need to know. People are like, what team are you on? They are more likely to kill the person who's on the other team, that isn't on the other team, then they are likely to kill the other team because the other team has protection. The moderates in the middle are like, everybody's killing that person. So, I really don't like that's how the human mind works. But it is. And so you're just going to see more of this for Swayze. And by the way, Where are you going next?
I was gonna go NATO Daddy.
Okay.
Where you want to go?
I really want to get to the gaming thing.
Oh, we can talk about the gaming thing.
Because this to me it's all intertwined with a populist moment, with the state of the economy. So let's set the stage. What's happening in the gamer movement right now is an echo of the larger push towards socialism, where people are in it's a very an emotional appeal. And let's get specific. There was a guy named Ross Scott who started a movement called Stop Killing Games. And the idea behind the movement of Stop Killing Games is very straightforward. I paid my money and I want my product. And because the way modern gaming is, you can stop supporting a game and then people will no longer be able to play it. One, when you've paid money for something, you can understand why people would be frustrated with that. But second, you can also understand that there's just something that when you buy a thing, like you want to feel like you have it, that it's yours. And so I completely understand where the movement is coming from. Now, where this really got spicy is a game developer and influencer named Pirate Software came out and just shit all over this and was like, this is fucking stupid. Literally, and I quote, "They can eat my whole ass." The amount of stupid I just had to sit through was like 10 minutes on Reddit or on Twitter or something like that. So he went pretty hard in the paint saying that this is dumb. Now, do you have any clips pulled up for this? Because it'd be great for people to hear it from the horse's mouth. But I think, and you've got Asmongold is all for Stop Killing Games. Moist Critical is all for Stop Killing Games. Obviously, Ross Scott is all for Stop Killing Games. And Thor has become, Pirate Software, has become like the main, he's seen as the mustache twirling villain in all of this. And so what I want to do is paint a picture for how I think the Stop Killing Games movement could move forward and get what they want. Pirate Software is being blamed for basically stopping the movement in its tracks. But all right, let our boy say what he's got to say.
I think
it's because of what you
Ross
heard
Scott
from Pirates. If you're against Stop Killing Games, and it's because of what you heard from Pirate Software.
By the way, pause
think
it for a
he
second.
represented Stop Killing Games.
The reason that I want to talk about this is not about video games. This is about who's going to save us. What is the root of the problem? Who's going to save us? And so you have these huge influencers pointing out a real problem. To your point, this is literally what you were talking about. Capitalist going to capitalist. These guys see an opportunity to choke their game out at their discretion when they want. Keep your money, kill the game, either to push you into version 2 or whatever. And so there are mustaches being twirled. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. However, there are also realities to be faced about how do you solve this problem. And we'll get to it once this is being laid out. But this to me feels like a microcosm. And by the way, if anybody thinks that this isn't something we should be covering, this is getting millions and millions of views. Like this is touching a fucking nerve. And I think is tied to all the things that we talk about. So anyway, all right, back to our boy.
As accurately as he represented his behavior in World of Warcraft and towards the World of Warcraft community. Yeah, like he said, the guild he was in was something like it was built on hate.
All right, pause it for a sec. This is part that's probably not going to be super useful to people. I'll speed run this for you. Pirate Software was playing World of Warcraft, and I'm only a headline reader on this. I was not involved in any of this drama. I didn't track it. But when something like this, he was involved in a game of World of Warcraft. They ended up going into a place where they were in danger, and I think World of Warcraft is either roguelite or roguelike. And that means if your character dies, your character is dead. You are starting over. And so a bunch of them like scrambled to run away, and he was a healer. And so as a healer to scramble away, people just felt some kind of way about that. And a bunch of them died. And I think he ended up surviving. So anyway, people were already mad about him, mad about that because he just kept doubling down. It wasn't my fault. So anyway, I think that that while there may be very just criticism there,
Can you straw man the arguments right now?
straw man them?
Yeah, because
Straw man them,
yeah, straw man.
not steal. You want me to give the worst argument possible?
Steel man the arguments.
Okay,
It's
got it.
Friday,
I was
7
like-
a.m. Sorry, guys. Because I understand. I see why it makes sense. I see why it doesn't make sense. I feel like this is a top down move. Doesn't, because all games are different. Some games are online. Some games are single player. Some games can be local. Some games. So it seems like to be a broad banner doesn't make sense. So I'm just trying to figure out, what is this person saying? What is this person saying? And where is kind of that divide?
Yeah. So the Stop Killing Games movement, which do you have the clip of Moist Critical? Because he gets to it pretty fast in terms of how they see it. I think I can represent it well, but it would be better to even just show it from his perspective.
Every clip I seen was like 40 minutes. So I'm like, I need a short or something. Like,
Yeah,
everybody
they
wants
do
to-
exist. But so Moist Critical said, listen, this is just about you paid money for a thing and you don't want someone else to be able to take that thing away from you. So for instance, if you buy a car, if you buy it outright and you're not leasing it, then nobody can take that car back from you. If you bought a Nintendo game back in 1989, no one was going to be able to come into your house and take that cartridge back. Once you bought it, you had it forever. And they believe that there are mustache twirling victims, that mustache twirling villains that are saying to maximize profit, we're going to make a normal game that doesn't rely on multiplayer or anything, that it goes up to a server to say, am I a legitimate copy of this game? Not as an anti-piracy mechanism, which I've heard some of them, I don't want to lump everybody together, but some of them have even claimed, like, even doing that, asshole, just means you're overcharging for your game. But let's set that aside for a second. You're having them reach up to the server, not so you can validate that this is a legitimate copy of the game. You're having them do that so you can kill the game whenever you want. And that is, they believe, if tested in a court of law, would probably lose, and that consumer protections would come up around that, and that game companies would be forced to stop doing that. And so they are trying to get legislators to stop doing that, to pass some sort of law. And they are very clear. This is not legal language that we are proposing. We are merely trying to get the signatures on this petition that we need in order to get legislation to take effect. And so, that's where sort of all this kicked off, so that's argument number one. Argument number two, represented by Pirate Software, is this doesn't make any sense. People that are promoting this do not understand how games are actually developed. And if you understood the architecture of games, you would limit this to just single player games that don't require anything on the server to continue running after they get done supporting the game. And so if you did that, and I am admittedly at the headline level of Pirate Software, because I haven't gone super deep, at the headline level of Pirate Software, I might be being a little generous. The way that he worded it could be interpreted the exact opposite way. I think Pirate Software is being misinterpreted because he came out so hot and was so inflammatory with the hot takes, which everybody loves hot takes. Let's not pretend, boys and girls, that's not what gets clicks. So, but because he did that, and it came on the heels of people feeling like he really mishandled the World of Warcraft moment. So you get this 1-2 punch where I think people are being a little uncharitable. But my read maybe is overly charitable. So once I lay his out, I'll tell you what my actual take is. But my very charitable interpretation of Pirate Software is that what he's saying is, if you limited the scope of your take on Stop Killing Games to single player games that are using the server merely to validate that this is a legitimate copy of the game, then okay, this is fine. Now, but if you try to cover multiplayer games, you don't understand the server architecture. And because you don't understand the server architecture, you're asking for something that would be so cost prohibitive, or that the developer, if they chose to stop supporting the game, they would be in a position where they have to turn code over to the community, which could be, first of all, now you're just giving up your IP. That's patently absurd. And then second of all, you now create a perverse incentive for people to try to get the player base to stop paying for the game, stop paying for the DLCs, stop paying for the skins or whatever it is that you're using to monetize your game, so that the community can take control of it. And so now you're creating this really weird adversarial relationship. I think he's right about that.
Yeah.
But because he's a developer, and full disclosure, so am I, because he's a developer, they're like, you're just fucking saying that because this is exactly how you run your game. Okay, so that's the setup that you have.
Okay.
Now, in the refutations that I've seen specifically from Ross Scott on Pirate Software, they really do seem hung up on this single player thing. I think Pirate Software is saying, no, you need to limit the scope of this to single player games. And they're saying, you don't understand. We're not trying to limit it to single player games. So I'm saying that's his problem. So anyway, that could be projection because that is my problem. And if this movement is about, okay, we want to protect consumers, we don't want to limit the kind of games that can be made, because you would do that if you force, like, I would suddenly become terrified of building an MMO, because if I know once I launch this, I have to continue to support it or hand over my IP at the end of this, no. So you take way too much risk building these things financially. So you're going to have a dramatic impact on the kind of games that get developed. But I understand what they're going for, which is, if I pay for something, I want to make sure that I actually have it. So I think if they narrowed the focus of this, you could probably get a lot more people supporting it, get a lot more signatures, get the actual legislation that's reasonable, moving in the right direction. Because remember, legislators don't understand video games. They understand it far less than the players. The players understand it far less than the developers. So you don't want to be in a position where you've got people that they have call it a righteous emotional response to something. They're trying to move that into legislation, which is, hey, in a democratic setup, that's exactly your right and your privilege, and you should be taking advantage of it to push legislators to create the kind of legislation that you want. Here for that. That's how the system should work. But in all of that, you want to make sure that you actually understand how this is all going to play out, given the realities of actually building a game. And that's where I think this all begins to fall apart. So
what are people missing? Because as a game developer, me outside looking in, it seems like a no-brainer. Like if it's a multiplayer game that requires an internet connection, that requires somebody to upkeep that environment for which that internet connection in the game can be active, that's not a sunk cost, that's not cheap. So somebody's gonna have to keep maintaining that services. So to say that you can,
and just to make that even more complicated, you might be using third-party solutions that you're paying for that allow your game to run. And so now I have to force them to also make their stuff available. It's like on the MMO side, I am surprised that the Stop Killing Games movement doesn't go, okay, cool. That doesn't make sense. I would love to see all of these guys be way more collaborative. And in fairness to Moist Critical, that's basically, I might be being overly generous here as well, but Moist Critical felt like he was trying to do that kind of outreach to Thor at Pirate Software, AKA Pirate Software. His representation of the exchange is that Pirate Software is just not willing to learn. Yeah. He's not willing to realize that he was wrong. Other than the sort of slander of the hot take, I'm not, like, the things that I have heard about Pirate Software's breakdown directly from Pirate Software's mouth don't seem incorrect. So that's the part where I'm like, like if you're trying to back him into a corner and say, you don't understand, he's just going to keep doubling down and being like, no, you don't understand how these games are made. So anyway, my pitch to the Stop Killing Games movement would be, okay, narrow the scope. Narrow the scope to single player games where they're not going to have to hand over IP or anything like that. Work with somebody who's a developer that actually understands the sort of gotchas that will say, okay, you're not going to want to push down the MMO route as just one example because these are the perverse incentives that that's going to create. Start with this. Start with, like, this game could be on a CD and hand it to me and it would play just fine in the woods with electricity but no internet connection. And that I get. But as this goes back for me to, like, if you're not mapping cause and effect and you're still at the level of, like, I'm just angry, you're not going to get the specificity that you need to get this stuff across the finish line in a way that will actually help your cause.
So Andrew W. in the chat has a question that kind of started our disagreement on this off camera. Can't the open market handle this, offer games with this as a feature and let people buy those games over the quote unquote bad ones? Yeah,
so this is exactly my pitch is there's a guy here who may be in the chat. George, if you're here, definitely pop off. So We have a guy here at Impact Theory. We're developing Project Kaizen, which, I'm wearing the shirt today, not because I knew we were going to talk about this, but because we have our first play test today, Drew.
Let's go.
Oh, God, I'm so excited for our new mode. And
Is that open to people?
only to our bug testers for right now. But I am so pumped
Take
for
the
this.
Discord. We have Kaizen like meetups and links so you guys.
And in a month, though, we are opening it up to our community.
Let's go.
Okay, having said that, George has been haranguing me for a long time. He's like, don't build a live service game. And I'm like, George, I can build a way cooler game doing live service. And by the way, ironically, it's socialist. Because when you do a live service game, you're saying, so take me. I am paying for God knows how many people to play Fortnite because I buy so many skins, because I'm such a pop culture freak that when a skin comes out for John Wick or Luke Skywalker or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, whatever, I'm that guy and I'm buying all of that stuff. It's free to play, so anybody that wants to play can play forever, and they never have to buy a skin if they don't want to. So Epic is able to do that because of people like me who spend ungodly amounts of money. So cool. Now, George is like, Tom, but you don't understand. That creates an adversarial relationship between the developer and the players, because now what's happening is you're creating an incentive where the developers are going to put all their money into the skins and they're not going to put it into making the game better. And I was like, George, that's insane. And the reason that's insane is when you make a game for free, because George is trying to convince me, don't make the game free to play, even though 7 out of the top 10 games on Steam are free to play. But don't make the game free to play. Instead, charge people money up front, make the game what he calls feature complete. And I'm like, George, how about we make a game feature complete, but we let people play it for free? Because otherwise, you're forcing everybody to pay for all the DLCs and all that for me to do the continuing development that I'm going to want to do. Plus, it's just way easier to get people to try to play your game. And my pitch is, George, the most compelling argument that when you keep pushing for me to charge for this game is that will help me sleep better, because I can make a worse game, force you to buy it up front, and as long as I'm good at hype marketing, I'm going to get my money back. And so you're in that way turning me into the hype man,
a marketer
who's like, I just have to have a big first weekend.
Yeah.
If I get a big first weekend, then fuck you guys. If the game is bad, doesn't matter. I got my money. You guys are toast. If I'm making a game where I have to get you so emotionally involved that you will voluntarily pay for these skins, then I've created a game that people are way more into. Now, George, if you're right, and I've actually created an adversarial relationship with the players, then there's a huge opportunity for an indie game developer to go, guess what, guys? That's the one thing we don't do. We're a feature complete game. We don't, there's no in-game transactions. This is just, you pay me your $60, you get your game, and that's it. We've got a nice, clean relationship. Great. But they're not doing that. Or it's about to happen. Either way, that option is on the table, and if it's real and that it will incentivize you to build a better game, then somebody's going to fill the void by building that better game. So this is where I'm like, guys, instead of doing all these authoritarian top-down games can only be made this way kind of things, if that's a real opportunity, like, be loud, tell people, hey, dear developers, this is the kind of game that we want. We'd really get behind this kind of game 100%. And then there's really an opportunity. But I look at it as a consumer and a developer, and I'm just like, well, hold on a second. There's a reason that 7 out of the top 10 games on Steam are free to play, because you can just get people into the game. And B, they're rolling the dice that they can make the game so compelling that you'll voluntarily pay for things you don't need in the game. Now, my own personal bias is I despise pay to win. So they should be allowed. People should be able to make it if they want. I find it gross. I don't know why people play it. I don't think it should be illegal. But again, I get the emotion behind this and would love to see them narrow the scope so they can actually get this across the finish line.
George is in the chat catching up.
George, let's go, Pegs. Welcome, brother.
He did also say you need a product that spreads via word of mouth because of how good the product is. That's his only.
I get that, man, for sure. But you imagine, is it harder or easier to get your friend to try something that's free, or that they have to spend somewhere between, call it 10 and, I mean, now $80 to buy a game? Way easier to get people in on something free. Way easier.
There is something to like Nintendo. I'm using them as I think they're like the biggest bad, is that they're saying they can break your console if you mod it. All games are now digital downloads. So there is this like you will own nothing and like it kind of mentality, I feel like, coming from Nintendo, of just like, pay me $80 for the same game I released 16 times, Mario Kart. So it's one of those things that where it's like we're starting to see a movement away from like, wait, I feel like I'm being sold a false bill of goods. So I understand in that perspective, yes, if you don't like it, don't buy it, move on to support the things that you do like. But there is a sort of, I guess, big four if you count PC, but like, if PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo all decide to do this, it can become adversarial to the consumer, or it can become something where...
Well, they absolutely should not be allowed to act as a cartel.
Yeah.
So let's start with that. If they are colluding, they should 100% be treated like a cartel, which is illegal. But nobody seems to mind when it's banks. But yes, those cartels should be broken up. So that's bad. Everybody should hate that. But what ends up happening is these things move in predictable life cycles. And what you start with is the founder who really has a vision and they want to make that thing come true. Like, I have a vision of what I'm trying to build that requires live service. I don't want to do it as a bunch of DLCs. I want my game to feel like it's alive. Anyway, I won't spiral us down that rabbit hole.
Sunspot came up with a good point. He said it wasn't that the company should be keep up the server. It should be fan servers.
Yeah.
And his pull was like, if a sale isn't a purchase, then piracy isn't theft. Like, you're not selling me a game now. I'm renting a game now.
Yeah. So let's not get lost in the semantics. So you're buying a license. You are paying for the right to use it under certain circumstances, which I'm sure is in the terms of service. So it becomes not it's not that they're trying to pull a fast one on you. It's that they're counting on you not reading what they're telling you in the fine print. Yeah. So everybody already understands that. Like, people already understand. I mean, this is the whole rage in the movement, is that they get that this is what companies are doing. So if they're saying, I want them to change the words in their marketing, okay. Like, if they want people to put front and center, like, hey, this is a license, and T's and C's, like on a drug where you've got to say, could do this, could do that, could do this. If you want to make people say, hey, look, this is a live service game, therefore, if the company stops supporting it for any reason, then the game will stop working. Okay, got it. Which to me is another pitch for free to play. But so I get all of that. But going back to the, I fully understand and hope that I was clear about this in the beginning, that Stop Killing Games movement is not saying no matter what, you must keep running the server. That's very clear. What I'm saying is that there are reasons why handing over your code to the community is insane. First of all, you could be using third-party services, which we are, I'll tell you that right now. And so I can't force them to also make it work, and our game won't work without those third-party services. Mm-hmm. Also, stable code will break over time, which is crazy. So your game is going to break anyway. Yeah. And so now, if you're going to say, well, the community needs to be able to repair that game, then you're saying that I have to hand you over uncompiled code. Like, that is crazy. So yeah, full stop, period.
Are there any games that have been killed, or any like specific ones that kind of like jump out?
Well, the one that everybody talks about is The Crew.
Okay.
So, but yes, many games.
I did used to like The Crew. Yeah, all right.
So this is a real problem. Like, I get what people are mad about. I'm just saying, hey, you're here at Impact Theory because cause and effect is your whole thing, and you want to understand how to map that to get what you actually want. So if you actually want to see the gaming industry improve, then narrow the scope, make sure you're very focused on, from a technical standpoint, can we actually pull this off, so that it doesn't just become rage into the ether, which then you give people the ability to dismiss your arguments because they're like, this is nonsensical given the realities of how this works. So rather than put yourself in that situation, engage with people that understand where you're going to get tripped up, sharpen your arguments, and come back, because this is something that I think they could get across the finish line if they narrow their scope and say, look, we really understand how this works, and then they're able to help lawmakers keep this focused so that they get the outcome that they really want. I really think from the stuff that I've seen off of Ross Scott, he actually wants to make the industry better. Like, he's really thinking about players, player communities, how much they love games, how much they invest emotionally in a game, and they don't want to see it die. So it's like, totally understand the objective here. Mason, red light.
We got a couple.
Yes. Another one from Bean Dip Nipslib.
Let's go. Bean
Bean
Dip back
Dip.
in the house. Come on now.
Back again. At least it's somewhat on topic today. I'm working on the outline for the story for my game. How did you write your story for your current project? You recommended AI for assets. Which should I start learning first?
Oh, if you're into game development, don't worry about story, not even a little bit. In the beginning, just focus on gameplay. Find the gameplay loop. What is fun? What will make people want to come back? Then layer story on it once you realize that you know how to do that. Make sure that you keep the scope of your game very small. One of the biggest mistakes I made was just trying to do everything at a AAA level. I should have been doing things at just like the most god-awful, low fidelity level humanly possible in the beginning. So yeah, scope small, focusing only on gameplay, making that loop feel awesome. And then you can get into the story of your game. But if you've got a great story and terrible gameplay, you've effectively got nothing. Unless you're trying to do one of those like game books. I don't know if you've seen them. I don't find them super interesting, but they have their niche. So you could do that, but not my bag.
I will say George also popped back into the chat and said, but $25 is a lunch, parentheses, guy math.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, George, if you're right, then that's the market opportunity. I'm just saying I don't think you're right. I think that they're, as somebody who can afford any and every video game ever, even I find the friction of having to go like get my wallet and add, money to my PlayStation account or whatever, or to my Steam account. It's like there's just enough friction. When it's free to play and I know, I can spend money if I want to, but I don't have to. I like that much better. So Genshin Impact, for instance, that was fun to play for free, but I wouldn't pay for it. So if I had dropped $60, I'd have been mad as hell. And I find their cosmetic purchases very confusing. So I've literally spent, I don't know, probably 30 hours playing that game, maybe more. Never spent a dime. So yeah, that was a win for me. Enjoyed it because it was free. Never would have tried it otherwise.
I'm the opposite. I was playing Destiny and I paid for Destiny and I was into Destiny 1. And then when it went free to play, I was like, I kind of fell off of it.
They got at least an extra year on Destiny 2 out of me by going free to play because I was burning out a bit and then realized, oh, this is free to play. Let's go. Yeah. So then kept engaging because I was like, yeah, it's fun enough. But if they had made me invest more money, I probably would have bounced earlier.
Copy. All right, we're going to AI next. We had a couple super chats that we lost from last time. Did we get those out?
Let's go.
I got you.
Yeah, super chat.
First off, Sequoia Hall. The GI Bill for home buying is what drove the home ownership post-war World War II, if I can speak. That is an example of building a middle class with a public subsidy that worked.
Yeah, but we also made them get shot in the face. So, not ideal. Not ideal.
I think Generation Z will take getting shot at the face to own a house.
Jesus Christ. That's the darkest thing
that's where we are right now.
Said to me.
That's where we are right now.
That is horrifying. I think they'll take revolution and guillotines to get their house. That's where I think.
Do you think we get to the guillotine level in America?
Um,
Nothing changes. We keep the system exactly how it is. 20 years from now, AI is limited. We don't get utopia. I'm giving you all the.
If you strip away AI and your one chance of
AI becomes a laptop, it's really cool. Robots get really cool, but they're laptops. They're not changing like the system fundamentally.
I think what really happens is you won't have guillotines, but you will have pockets of violence where blue states pull away from red states. You have a fracturing of the United States. Do you go into all-out civil war? That becomes the question. We're going to see the next step of this play out over sanctuary cities. Now, the problem is, I think it would be very hard to do a proper civil war because before it was like North versus South. You could just there was a nice clean line that you could say geographically yes, geographically no. Now it's going to be like all different states broken up, different parts of states against the other side. So it's going to get really weird. Like cities tend to go blue, rural areas tend to stay red. So now you get, oh man, it probably gets too fragmented. And so here's a crazy thought. Like, could America turn into like some warlordy shit where not only is it like 50 states, that it breaks up into something more like 162 states that are much smaller because different states fracture in different ways. I mean, man, it could, especially if biology is right and the network state is real.
Just about to bring that
now
up.
all of a sudden you give people another way to separate from their geography, where they're like, we're actually grouped up around an idea. These people are grouped up around geography. The geography people are battling with each other. Geography versus ideology people are battling, even if just by creating borders around really small things. Because if your state becomes weak enough, you get the Chaz Choppy kind of things where it's like, it's just an area of downtown. So, I mean, that could get crazy. That feels impossible. But
shout out to
know.
Ribsy in the chat. He posted in the Discord the biology Malcolm Malice interview, and that's when they really did a deep dive on the network state.
Biology and Malice did an interview recently?
Yeah.
I gotta watch that.
And they went through, literally, biology went through a presentation about like, this is how you do it. It's just like decentralized money. We decentralize currency. Why can't we decentralize country? And that was like his premise to jump off about. Like,
yeah, I think he's wrong about that. I don't think it's gonna work, but it could add additional friction that could further destabilize a nation state like we have now.
I think that there's something to me, I heard community and all of that. And I think that the honest assessment of America recently is like, we traded going to our next door neighbor and asking for sugar to ordering DoorDash to deliver me sugar. So we like traded community for convenience.
Yeah,
And
but
I
have
think
you
that-
seen Eat or Not?
What's that?
It's a Argentinian drama series on Netflix
Okay.
about an apocalyptic event. I'll let people discover it for themselves. But you see very fast how even within a building, a single building, some people will want you dead. And that's what's going to happen. You're a network state guy, sure, but you have to live somewhere.
Yeah.
And when all hell is breaking loose, people need to know, are you on my team or not? And it's not like, oh, we just ignore apartment B1. No, they kick the door down on apartment B1 and they kill them. So it is, I don't think that the network state holds up in times of great distress, because when your apartment has things that are valuable, food, warmth, whatever, they're going to come and get it.
Yeah.
One more super chat
Let's go.
from the Mandrake Mechanism. It is in the best interest of U.S. military to make people think the bombs were dropped on a Trump weekend whim. Everything about Iran was too orchestrated to not be a 2 months planned operation. If true, was it the end game?
Oh, well, they will have planned this out for a very long time. They probably had plans like that for 5-10 years. In fact, more. So there's a whole story about how the bombs were built. So the bunker buster bombs were built specifically to take out Fordo, or certainly the nuclear program. I'm pretty sure they even celebrated or interviewed for sure the people that built it, because I watched a report on their reaction to, like, we spent whatever 10-15 years building this technology specifically to take out these sites. And so to see them work, it's like basically your whole professional career is about that one thing. And as I was listening to that, I was like, yo, like there's some amount of internal pressure to just be like, well, we built it for this reason. Are we really not going to use it? So yeah, you should assume that this has been in the ether within the US government for a decade plus. I think that this was a moment of opportunity. So we did an interview with a guy named Eli Lake that'll be coming out on Tuesday. Make sure you guys check it out. And that's one of the things that we talk about. Like, was this really like something happened in Fordo and now like, oh, they're really about to make the bomb? Or was this like, oh, you guys killed all their air defense? Hey, guess what time it is? It's time for some big bombs. Let's mop up the place. So I think it went more like that. And I give my full breakdown in that episode of what I think is really happening. But to speed run it, it goes something like this. I'm Trump. I think like a VC. I do things that are good for my company, America Inc., that also obviously reward me. There's no doubt. Like, this guy is unhinged with like the crypto stuff and all that. But I do things that benefit me and my company, America Inc. And I look at the Middle East. Guys, I'm telling you, as an entrepreneur going to the Middle East, I've been to the UAE, I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been to Kuwait. When you go there, you can feel the money. It is crazy. So you feel countries that believe in themselves, that have a clear vision of the future, that are able to extract so much money out of oil, but they understand that they're on a ticking clock. And so now they're trying to financialize their economy. And so it's like wherever investment goes, innovation goes. So given that investment, you cannot imagine how weird it was for me to bump into Ray Dalio backstage I think I was in Dubai at that time. And I was talking to him about being there, and he said either to me or in the talk, I'm conflating it in my mind, I can't remember which, but that he has one of those big white outfits. And he was like, oh yeah, a lot of times when I'm here, I'll just wear that. And like, this is like what's happening here is so important. And I really want to understand the culture better.
You mean like the chic?
Yeah. And so I had in my head, I still have in my head, this image of Ray Dalio, like bumping into him behind the scenes in Dubai. He wasn't. He was in a suit. I want to be clear. But in my memory, I have this vision of him like in the white robes. And I'm like, Ray, Tom. I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I forget the stat. It's crazy. It's like 3 of the 5 biggest investment houses in the world are in Abu Dhabi. So it's like the seat of VC investment is Abu Dhabi, okay? It is the Middle East. Most people are just completely blind to that. So now you've got President Trump, who's the CEO of America Inc., who has had the same experience I've had, I assure you, of being like, yo, the airport feels like a 7-star resort. And so it's the closest thing to the streets feel like they're paved in gold. It's just nuts when you're there. So Trump has had that same experience. He's going, I see where this is going. Investment is pouring into this place. They've got to transition. They're going to be financializing their economy. I want to make sure that we get part of that investment. I've got to calm the tensions down in Gaza because no one's going to come here if they feel like they're going to get rocketed into oblivion. I've got to calm tensions down with Iran just financially. And so I hope you guys watched oh no, it hasn't come out yet. On Monday, you guys have a deep dive about looking at the world through the lens of Realpolitik.
There was one fact that blew my mind. I'm not going to spoil it, but it was really good. About how much territories change. Yeah. That was crazy, but it's a good deep dive. And it was I didn't know about it. Tom surprised us on Monday, so I was...
Yeah, that's a long story. So in that deep dive, I'm saying if you look at the world through the lens of Realpolitik, you realize that nobody's doing anything ideologically. Yeah. Trump isn't doing things because he believes in God or anything like that. Middle East isn't doing anything because they believe in God. There's ad hoc or post hoc rationalizations that you're going to hear God a lot about. But the reality is people do what's in the best interest of them and their nation. And it is in America's best interest for us to get a piece of the investment shift to the Middle East. If you map to that, everything's going to make sense. And to get there, you got to drop some really fucking big bombs on Iran to get them to chill the fuck out. You've got to get Gaza chilled the fuck out. And so if you're Trump, you're trying to just get all of that calmed down. You're going to turn a blind eye to a lot of crazy shit. The murder of Khashoggi, the journalist, by the Saudis, too much money. You literally can't afford to make a big deal out of it. And yeah, if you got to drop some bombs on Iran, that's what you're going to do. And if you got to grab Bibi Netanyahu by the lapel and say, I'm going to stop helping you if you don't fucking end this, that's what you're going to do. Realpolitik, I think, predicts exactly how all of this is going to play out.
All right. In a huge win for AI, first of its kind decision, an AI company wins a copyright infringement lawsuit brought by authors. The thing about this win, now this is a small group of authors, Andrea Bratch, Charles Graeber, and Kurt Wallace. They allege that Anthropic AI used their books to train their models. These are copyrighted books. They use digitized models of them. Court threw it out, said that it's fair use. What stunned me about this is the precedent that this sets, that copyrighted, at least books as it stands right now, aren't protected, and that AI has the right to train on copyrighted books. Now, we're already seeing in China, I think DeepSeek is allowed to train on anything. There's no IP
Welcome
law.
to China, baby.
Yeah, they kind of open it up. So the fact that this is coming to America, I know Elon Musk tweeted, as well as Jack tweeted, that IP should go away in general. I don't think we should get there, but were you surprised that AI got this win, or did you think that this was happening?
This is going to happen.
Wow.
AI is a tsunami. There is no stopping it. And it is, as somebody who will, the vast majority of the things that I do and care about will be replaced by AI. Do not think I think in some way like I'm outside of this. I am racing to get my video game done because I know that I'm in a narrow window right now where human-made things are still going to matter. It's all going to go away. So I'm just not going to waste my time fighting against it. I'm going to get to high ground. So get to high ground is leveraging AI to your advantage, period. So I look at this and I say, well, you'll let humans do it. You'll let humans go into a library, read the books and learn from them. And nobody's going to slap them and say, hey, you can't do that. Now you might start shrink wrapping the books or whatever. So you can't just wander in. You got to actually pay for them. Okay. But you're still not going to stop me from learning from that thing. That would be absurd. And so you're saying the only reason I'm willing to let you do it is because either A, you're human, or B, you're dumb. And so it like takes you so fucking long to get your head wrapped around this stuff. Might as well let you. That's stupid. The reality is all of our innovation is based around learning from somebody else. This is why culture works. Culture made humans the most dominant apex predator the world has ever seen, because I can now download into your brain over the course of a single human life all of the innovation that's come before you, get rid of the ones that don't matter, distill it down to just the hit songs, put it into your brain, and now it feels like society just moves forward because we don't have to constantly reinvent the past. Every other animal, you can give them a little bit, but the reality is, for the most part, they're born with all the things that they're going to do, which means that stuff is hardwired, which means that they're going to evolve incredibly slowly. Humans, there's 68 years between the Wright brothers going, oh my God, we can fly, to landing on the moon. 68 years. Okay, that's culture. So to say that we're going to be like, we're not going to let AI take advantage of culture is dumb. It is going to happen. China's going to do it. You are in a game theoretic race against China. If they're doing it, we're going to have to allow it. Otherwise, we're going to fall behind. I get it. My heart breaks that AI is going to be able to do me better than me. That people are going to be able to one-shot things because I put so much content out that will sound exactly like me, for better or worse, but they'll be able to one-shot it. So that day's coming. So rather than being a twist about that, I just try to map, where's this all going? How do I use it to my and humanity's advantage? Now, if I could press a button, Drew, would I make it so that AI just never came into existence? That's tough. I would be really tempted. I would not want to be the person that got to make that decision. That's how much I know that if we could just not have it, there's probably the life that we know would be extended for a very long time. Now, the life that we don't know may be better, but it's going to be on the other side of a lot of turmoil.
I feel like it's too early to call, but I'll pose that same question. What about like social media? If you had the flip switch and you
I
could
would
kill
never.
it,
No way.
you would keep
I
it.
don't have an addictive personality. So it is so easy for me to be like, I spend a little bit of time on it and then that's it. The sum total of my engagement with social media is we use it as outbound, as an incredible tool to generate millions of dollars. I use it to learn about what's happening in the world because I really believe that the three aspects of impact theory are the three most important things in the world. So you've got the one that what we're doing here, politics, world affairs, is how you shape culture. I'm really trying to help pull us back to the middle. I think that's incredibly important to avoid violence. Innovation is one of my North Stars. How do you innovate? Entrepreneurship. So I teach entrepreneurship. Number 3, kids. How do I want to empower them with values? Through video games. So it's like the 3 things I'm focused on, they're my version of Elon Musk's like, I've got to get us to Mars, got to solve the environmental challenges, blah, 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 right? Like you pick the things that fall within your like talent and passions, and hopefully you try to contribute to the world in a meaningful way.
Could we do a poll? Which one would you rather kill first, AI or social media? One of them has to die.
You for sure kill social media.
I think you're saying. In the big beautiful bill that Trump introduced, there was a stipulation in there that 10 years, no AI regulations can happen from a state level. I think from a federal level as well. Do you see any blowback to that?
That's dumb.
That's dumb.
Of course. Regulation, top down, stop.
No, but that's what I'm saying. The bill said no state regulation for.
And how are they mandating that? With a fucking regulation. So I'm just saying, we have a federalist system for a reason. You have to let states do things that are dumb, and then people either rebel against that state or they don't. And so, look, we live in a federalist system, which means both that states have rights and they should be able to run experiments that the federal government isn't running. And then also, there are certain things you can't not do. So you can't remove rights from your citizens, but you can grant them more. So if somebody is regulating AI in a way that was, I don't know, I'd have to think a lot about whether there are ways that you could regulate AI that would be advantageous. But I think your default assumption is keep the government out of it as much as you can. Let states do what states want to do. Let people vote with their feet. So where I get beyond outraged is when California starts talking about, even if you leave, we're going to tax you. That one's a Second Amendment. So that's like hard pass. But if they want to run crazy, like if New York wants to elect a socialist mayor, they should be able to elect a socialist mayor. I think it's positively insane, but I would not expect the federal government to step in and say, no, you can't do that.
So I was surprised that you had that reaction, honestly, because I think that was a David Sachs implementation into the bill.
I get what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I'm going to say, because we are in this culture war, this AI war with China, so we do need to make sure that we can move fast and nimble and get as close to AGI, ASI as possible.
There is a very big difference between me saying, I hope states regulate it, and me saying the federal government needs to chill the fuck out.
Because it's top down.
Look, Trump is playing a very dangerous game with all of the like really aggressive militarization, get illegal aliens out. That one though matters. And so from the perspective of you've got to protect your values, you've got to uphold the rule of law, you've got to keep people safe. If a state isn't keeping their people safe, then I definitely expect the federal government to step in. But if Trump can't see that, whoa, this is terrible optics. This is very dangerous from an enraging the public perspective. And so you've got to find ways to build bridges. And neither Trump nor Tom Homan are constitutionally capable of doing that. And I would just like to remind Republicans, I would like to remind the right, you're creating a precedent that will be used against you. And so if you want a blue federal government going into red states and slapping things around, pulling people out of prisons or whatever, okay, but like you've really got to be careful with this. You must uphold rule of law, and yes, that's going to be upsetting, and yes, I think they should do it, but they should be very, very cognizant of the precedent that they're setting, that they need to communicate this, that they need to get the public to buy in. So yeah, it's dicey, man. Dicey. No easy answers on that one.
This poll is surprising me quite.
Yeah, I seen 88% when I checked into it.
What do they want to kill?
It's
AI?
88% for killing social media first.
Yeah, for sure. Social media has way less upside. Way less.
That also
upside.
means like people want to be more isolated rather than lose their AI.
No, I think what it tells you is that people understand that if they have kids, it's completely sucked their children's brains away. And when you're trying to have a conversation with your kid and they're like a zombie staring into their phone, or you're in a relationship with somebody and you look over and they're constantly on their phone, or you go out to dinner and they're on their phone, or you're on a date with somebody and they're just constantly onto the next, and just everything is fucking broken and delusional. You're just like, yo, this is a problem. This goes back to most people live their life by the law of accident. And so you can lead them by the nose with things like social media, where they just can't escape the pull of that technology. But if you can use it in a sensible manner, it's incredibly powerful. But there's going to be some huge swath of humanity that cannot use it sensibly.
One funny reply was Elon's AI is greater than Elon.
I don't know what they mean by that. Do they mean Grok is better than Elon? I mean, eventually.
I think it could work either for an AI replication or Grok is better than his like deranged tweets is probably where.
Well, he's certainly, from a PR perspective, completely unhinged. But at the same time, has been able to wildly raise the value of his companies by being able to control his own PR and constantly being in the public eye and being arguably one of the most famous people in the world. But he doesn't touch politics now. It is fascinating to see how much he's backed off. It's also fascinating to see how quickly the world is just like, okay, and they're on to the next thing. Like, yeah, very, very interesting.
It's interesting though, because I think if you kill social media though, I think it has more benefit. And it's not like AI is going to save us, but more so we won't have dumb relationship takes. We won't have any more man on the street interviews. Like there'll be stuff like that I think is.
You go back to letting the government control the narrative though, which I absolutely hate.
Somebody did say that, like the government then can operate in the silence as well.
And they will. They will.
It's weird.
The iron law of oligarchy.
Yeah. Jumping over to China, this like blew my mind that they released mosquito-sized spy drones designed for stealth missions. Going back to the Eli Lake interview that we had, and we started talking about how different countries are having intelligence programs and things like that. I'm really becoming sober to like, wait, everybody's spying on everybody, and everybody has sleeper cells.
Oh yes.
Everybody, and it's.
Oh yes.
I guess I was living in a bubble and being naive that like, oh, okay, like World War II is over, like we're cool now. Everybody just goes back to their country. We mind our business.
Yeah.
And wait until the next person gets a nuke. But it seems like it's becoming.
That's what they want you to think.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And that's why we need social media.
For sure. Yeah, it is. The spy game is a wild game in terms of every country. Not every country, but the vast majority of the major players are all going to have sleeper cells in as many countries as they deem relevant, constantly trying to get intel so they know where they're going, so they're not caught off guard. It's really pretty crazy. When you start looking at war and how much like subterfuge is used, the fact that the Brits had cracked the Enigma code from the machines that the Nazis were using, and they let their own people get blown up and killed because if they stopped all of it, they knew that the Nazis would be aware that, like they've cracked this. Yeah. That's brutal, man. That is brutal. But that's the game being played. You've got people in all those countries. And the one that just kills me is if you are trying to leverage human intelligence, that is a really nice way of saying, I get dirt on you and I trap you into working for me, risking your life to work for me, knowing that if you get caught, you get tortured to death. And I'm still going to do it. Cue the Epstein files. I am just convinced using like the notion of Realpolitik of, okay, morality is totally set aside. I know that men, for whatever fucking weird ass reason, if you've got distressingly young girls, you can set that honeypot up anywhere and you're just going to fucking trap people. That is so nuts to me. Anyway, they do it. And so what are the odds that this guy with that profile dealing with world leaders, he has a painting of Bill Clinton wearing a dress in his foyer. Man, I get it. Conspiracy like this. I don't have the evidence, but holy bejesus. This just seems like it's got to have some relationship to intelligence collecting, getting dirt on these people. It's just bananas.
Shout out to Nancy D in the chat for pointing
Nancy
this
D
out.
for Drew?
No
one knows Nancy Drew, do they? It's too old. Too old of a reference.
Nancy Drew's still around.
These old kids.
They rebooted that. Nancy Drew was a dude?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I think you said he's old.
Me, I'm old.
Oh, okay. Supreme Court just came out with a decision that's actually pretty like, I'll read it. I'll let you decide. The Supreme Court just put brakes on activist judges blocking national policy with universal injunctions. In a 6-3 ruling by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, SCOTUS said federal courts are overstepping when they issue nationwide rulings for people who aren't even involved in a lawsuit. The decision limits the power of district judges to halt federal policies across the country based on one single case. The court's authority does not stretch that far, Barrett wrote, granting a partial stay and blasting the practice as exceeding what Congress allows. This is taking on the activist judges that were shutting down things in different countries. This is interesting because this seems like this is an evolution of like the political game where when one side does something, the other side is now trying to fight back, and it seems like they're trying to correct this with this ruling.
Yeah, I think that's very wise.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. Like you have a Supreme Court for a reason. You have federal judges for a reason as well. But being able to influence like international relations with some of the stuff that you're trying to do, to interrupt federal policies, that's crazy. So that's where you've got the Supreme Court. If something matters enough, it should be left alone by the district court judges. That should be limited to whatever the scope of their district is. And then when we want something that is a nationwide influence, you got Congress and you've got the Supreme Court. That feels way smarter as a way to deal with this.
Yes, but some of the injunctions that these activist judges did were, that's the reason that they had to stay for the dude who got deported, Garcia. I'm blanking on his first name. That was also, they also
Abrego?
Yeah, thank you. They're also were the ones that kind of stopped the due process conversation. So in this administration, where some things are a bit more do it fast and we'll fix it in post type of policies, activist judges could stop this beat from being massively spread. So
yeah, but you can't think about how many district judges there are. You can't have them all pulling in different directions so that you can literally paralyze the executive branch with like district court judges. That's crazy. You should be able to paralyze the executive branch with the Supreme Court. You should be able to paralyze the executive branch with Congress. You should not be able to paralyze the executive branch with a district court judge. And given that the Supreme Court agrees, I'm here for that. And listen, I'm willing to abide by the Supreme Court when they do things that I think are totally unhinged, because that's how the system should work. I want it to have checks and balances. And so I don't trust myself enough that when the Supreme Court doesn't go my way, that I start throwing a tantrum. I go, okay, listen, that's why we have the Supreme Court. This one makes sense to me. I'm glad that it went up to them, and I'll be interested to see how it plays out in real life. A lot of times the summary of these things miss a lot of important nuance in it, and I haven't read the actual ruling itself. I'm just trying to find it. But that certainly feels at a high level, feels right to me. And remember, this is the right and the left are gonna be able to take advantage of this. So you wanna make sure that when you're thinking about policy, you think about it on the other side. But I don't think that a district court judge should be able to stop a president that I fucking hate and don't want to see their stuff move forward, stop them. But I very much want Congress and the Supreme Court to be able to pump the brakes.
And in other news, apparently we're turning into a news channel because there's a lot of things that just happened while we were live.
Let's go. Breaking news.
Yes, U.S. and China have confirmed details of a trade framework. So there is a deal on the table between U.S. and China. It is confirmed. Beijing confirmed it exactly. I'm like, wow. This should, shut down the internet, right? The U.S. has confirmed these of a trade framework that seeks to allow rare earth exports and easing of tech restrictions, according to a statement released by the Chinese Ministry of Commerce on Friday afternoon. China will review and approve export applications for items subject to export control rules, while the U.S. will correspondingly cancel a range of existing restrictive measures imposed against Beijing. So I guess at least the rare earth metals and the...
I'll be interested to see if this is a win for the U.S., a win for Beijing, a tie, because at least the way that article is written, they're framing this as like Beijing got a lot of what they wanted. So this is going to be interesting. I cannot wait to dive into this.
China will speed up the export of rare earths to the U.S., and U.S. will cancel relevant restrictive measures.
So it's basically like, don't stop us from making our own chips, and we're not going to stop you from making your own chips.
No, yeah.
This is going to get crazy.
Yeah. But China could make their own chips. They were just banned from buying the NVIDIA chip.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
So,
you were saying from China's perspective.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, sorry. The better way to say it, because they are going to make their own chips, but the better way to say it is, don't stop us from making our own chips, because we're going to try to get the USMC. No.
TSMC.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah. Yep. We're going to try to get them to come to the U.S. And to do that, we need rare earth minerals. And China's like, I don't want to have to build all of my own shit. So let me just get the good stuff.
Yeah.
And TSMC is going to be like, that is our wet dream that we can sell to China. We can sell to the U.S. and start moving to the U.S. Like, yes, please.
Yeah.
So
in Arizona that they're building up. So they're already like,
bro, I'm telling you that is the realist framework in terms of how that's going to play out. So that's interesting, but that accelerates the race between the US and China. Now it's like basically top line, headlines. We're not deep. Maybe as we get into it, it'll be something different. But at the headline level, that's like, okay, we're on the train. We're holding the brake. We're slowing everybody down. And now the agreement is, let's just take the brake off.
Let's just
both sides.
Let's just drag race it.
Yeah. Drew, we're wheels are spinning. I can smell the smoke. Let's go.
There were reports that DeepSeek has like stalled out in development because they couldn't get enough NVIDIA chips to like build up to the next iteration of their model. So I don't know if that has pressure to them, but it does seem like they tried everything they can, but they need these chips to get excelling.
They'll certainly go faster if they get these chips. So this is both sides betting that unfettered, they can beat the other one. Now, there's going to be a deeper play in terms of what else is in the deal, what else helps or hurts each side. It'll be very, very interesting to see. And it is going to be a wild spin fest in the media about whether this was a Trump victory or a Trump L. So we'll have to parse through, see what's really going on. We'll find out.
And it's definitely picking up. Another AI news, Meta got their man. They poached 3 people from OpenAI. We talked about it earlier this week.
Bro, $100 million signing bonus. I would peace out. I'd be like, later, guys, got to go. Enjoy Impact the Earth. Like,
wrap this live up for me, guys. I'm out.
When you can get my attention, like you're throwing a lot of money.
$100 million signing bonus is crazy. But
signing bonus.
Do you think that's actually worth that? Like, how can that
for
be
Meta
ROI positive?
Of course, bro. AI is
for AI?
billions and
billions, yeah, but it's just
billions of dollars
there. So like, I guess do they have secrets on how to train models, or
they're doing models?
There's like
metaverse implications, the Quest implications. Like
there's like 13
robotics.
people that understand AI well enough to do this around the world. That's a slight exaggeration, but not by much. And so this is a game of talent. This is why, boys and girls, if I could just PSA for a second, companies are just human talent. It's all about human talent, getting human talent. Whoever gets the most human talent wins. That's why you should want to be some of that human talent that people are terrified to lose, that they want to keep. $100 million. Remember, signing bonus. You are paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of the problems you solve. And that difficulty has to be tied to a big upside revenue potential. If you are fortunate enough that you have the intellectual capability to do it, pursue something that matters to the world and get so good that people can't stop you. Man, that is the ticket in life, boys and girls. That is the ticket in life. Let's go.
Okay, I want to put on the tinfoil hat real quick.
All right.
All this is speculation. None of this is confirmed.
Oh, yeah.
But I've been seeing a lot of tweets about it.
Yeah.
And it seems very, very interesting. Somebody in the chat, before I jump into this, just said this could be a huge win because it could de-escalate tensions between us and Taiwan. Us and China with the chip deal and the rare earth deal now. So that might also make China back off from Taiwan, at least for a couple more years. And that can also be another Trump win. So if that happens and he somehow brokered a deal in Gaza, Trump might have to get a Nobel Peace Prize.
Dude.
I'm not even gonna lie. If he gets it, you haters gonna hate, but yo, 3 Middle East?
If
he steals in one presidency? That's crazy.
Listen, if he really does calm down the Middle East,
that's Bill Clinton level of like, all right, nobody, like everybody blue, red, everybody's like Bill Clinton, we got it. He's a good president. Like, we're not gonna talk junk, but like,
you'll never get there with Trump. He's too divisive. People
three peace deals in the Middle East.
They'll spin it. But what will happen is that history will remember him as somebody that really got something done. Yeah. Once the like emotion of it all, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, will be like hard to argue the results.
Yeah.
So
when they're in Gaza for spring break.
Yeah, the Riviera of the Middle East. Bro, unhinged, but if it ends up being true, that will be so wild.
So the framework as it's outlined right now, again, this is reports. We're getting them from a bunch. I seen this on Constantine Kissin's Impact Theory
alumni. What's up, KK?
End to Gaza war in 2 weeks. Gaza to be governed by 4 neighboring countries. Early reports said like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and I'm getting conflicting on the other 2. But
one of them's going to be Israel for sure.
Apparently, like Israel was like the last, but we'll get there. Hamas leader completely exiled. A 2-state solution agreed to by Israel. for West Bank, and then several.
Yes, but it's in the future if certain criteria are met. And again, this is all speculation, but even in the speculation, people are saying that.
Yeah. The things that jumped out to me, the Gaza to be governed by 4 neighboring countries, I feel like that's a red flag to me because that's a little weird.
What else are you going to do, though?
I understand that. And the 2-state solution, I think both of those 2 things are like, it sounds good, but
it sounds transitionary. I still think you're probably going to have a problem. But
in practice, though, what does that look like? Yeah.
So Gaza is testing my realist lens hypothesis that people do what's in the best interest of their country and themselves, and ideology doesn't really enter into it. And so in the deep dive, I tried to add something to the realist lens that is this idea that culture is a restraining force. And culture really does set like groundwork for how all of this is going to work. Meaning, if in your culture you believe that people, the best thing they could do with their life is to sacrifice for God and that they will be rewarded in the afterlife, then you're going to see the downstream effects of that. And I think that is part of what we actually see with Hamas, how they recruit people and they get them to believe that, hey, I get it, you're struggling here in life, but even if it's your child, your young child, they've done the greatest act that they can do on this earth to please God. And so now things are going to be better for them in the afterlife. And when people really believe that, that puts you in a dark position. This isn't going to change until their will to fight is broken and they realize that there's an opportunity to enter the modern economy, to make life good for their kids on earth, to make life better for their kids than it was for them, for their grandkids better than it was for their kids, which was better than them. Like once you get into that loop, now you get people pointed in the right direction. That's exactly what we see going on in most of the rest of the Middle East, is because they've got a gun to their head, ticking clock of the world is going to move away from oil even if we don't run out, that we better find a way to financialize our economy or something else, manufacturing, whatever. But you're going to have to find a thing that isn't oil that's going to keep the money flowing. And so if you can get that to happen there, that is your only shot of people being like, I don't care that the Israelis are doing well because we're also doing well. It is the discrepancy, the feeling of hopelessness that creates the problem. But you also, like, you have to, like, even if you don't believe that Israel is running Gaza like an open air prison, think of it as it's just way too much regulation. You have super oppressive governmental regulation because they're even controlling the ports, right? So it's like you've just got so much regulatory burden, possibly all the way to this is just a fucking prison, that of course, like their economy's always going to, like it's, even if they wanted to focus on, I want to make my kids' lives better and my grandkids' lives even better, if they can't even control the ports, you've got a problem. So it's like, but you can't use the ports to blow shit up. So it's like you're in this catch-22. So we'll see if this ends up being broken. But if you get other Arab nations to weigh in here, then you at least have some legitimacy that this isn't just about the Zionist Jews who were evil because they moved into the space and they took it over and, you know, that's just bad, bad, bad. So it's got a shot. It's got a shot. Oh, I was going to say this earlier. So what I think is about to play out in the Middle East, that it's really going to be a huge tectonic shift from Trump if he manages to actually get peace in the Middle East, gets economic growth going. If we see signs that we're moving, because it needs to happen fast for what I'm about to say, but if we see signs that even Gaza is moving in the right direction, that they start getting investment from a bunch of different countries, helping them rebuild fast. If we see that kind of thing, then the knock-on effect is going to be that the whole world goes, you have to be strong. And we will have evidence, because right now, the West has swung so hard towards compassion, open borders, let people in, we're on stolen land, we're illegitimate. Like that's become, the West has become so successful that it's created this like mental parasite that's destroying the thing that made the West the West. Trump is running an experiment that says, if you fuck with me, I will fucking bomb the shit out of you, period. Soleimani, got you. Nuclear program in Iran, not on my watch, got you. Like sanctuary city, you think you're going to hide the immigrants? Nope, got you. And if this plays out, that he's able to get the Middle East of all places, the place considered where presidents' reputations go to die. If he's able to turn that around, he's going to say, listen, this is peace through strength. You see, I don't have any intention of having boots on the ground in Iran, but I told you I was going to bomb it. If you didn't negotiate, you didn't negotiate. Boom. Now you're negotiating. Great. I let Israel go completely unhinged on these guys for a long time, but honestly, they've gone too far. We've got to rein them in. And so you'll see both there is a set of rules, and as long as you meet those rules, we let you thrive. You cross the line, we hit you. And so that's how life works. So the question becomes, can he restrain his darker impulses enough, or does he go full unhinged, crypto deals, bribe me please, like all of that stuff? Or does he just go, listen, just like in a household, there are boundaries, and I'll let the kids be kids, but hey, you break the vase or you punch your sister in the face. Nope. Hard stop, immediate spank on the ass. Like you go to bed without supper, like that kind of stuff. And tomorrow when you come back, I'm going to be kind again, totally reset. You don't need to be punished forever. The punishment was no dinner and getting the swat on the ass. You got those and now it's done. And I get for some people that is just intolerable madness. But I look at that and I'm like, yeah. So we'll see.
Like, okay, is that a model or a precedent that we want to set? Because
I think that's what Herkimer 1 is asking. They're saying AKA fascism. Man, if you read that as fascism, I don't know what to do. Like you have to have rules. You live in an anarchic system. God does not intervene. Yes. Yeah. God does not intervene in human affairs. Mm-hmm. There's no one to appeal to. So there are only the people with the bigger weapons. That's it. Those are the only people you get to appeal to. Fascism is, I'm going to come in and we're going to blend the economic power of the country with the government. And so now I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to fucking take that over. So I don't think that telling somebody these are the rules, which by the way, you can vote for, you can vote me out of office, but these are the rules that are on the books. These are the rules that I'm setting as the president that you elected me to set, because not everything can be ahead of time made into a rule, like international foreign policy. And I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to broadcast exactly what it is as much as I can. There's going to be behind the scenes stuff, but I'm going to make sure you know. And if you overstep that, there's going to be a consequence. And if you comply, then it's prosperity for all. Now, I say all of that within a realist lens. Trump is going to try to make America Inc. win over everybody else. He wants America to win. And if everybody else can also win at the same time, great. But make no mistake, I am not delusional. Just like we fucked up Japan, as soon as they started like getting a little too economically powerful, we'll do it to anybody else. I'm not blind to that. But you live in an anarchic system. So in an anarchic system, at some point, you have to say, these are the rules.
I have two questions. First one, there is a precedent that is being set, so that wasn't quite my question. My question was, okay, strongman Trump did this, went to the Middle East, swung his dick around, got these things settled. It worked. Does this empower Putin to be like, okay,
in fairness, if I can keep going with your analogy, it only works if Trump swings his dick around and someone actually has an orgasm. If he's just coming on everybody, we've got a problem. But if people are like, yo, this really worked. I feel this. Daddy Trump, I got love. Like you hit the spot. Then it works. But if he just turns Iran into rubble and is just slapping people with his penis, we're not going to get anywhere. This has got to result in mutual orgasm.
Does this set a precedent on the global stage for the conflicts that are happening in the Congo that we talk about, to the Ukraine-Russia war, where just, okay, I got to be strong, man. Let me just go strong, take over. I'll set up peace deals. I'll make sure everybody in Kiev
way too complicated. Over
roses,
time, maybe it plays out that way, but you're still going to have a mess of the world. There are still going to be places that are absolutely dysfunctional. There's only going to be so much that he can do. There's only going to be so much any leader can do. So we're still in a populist moment. The odds of him misstepping are extraordinarily high. So it's like, I don't think anybody should bust out the chisel and start putting him up on Mount Rushmore. He's got plenty of opportunity to fuck everything up. And by the way, this is still so complicated. The Middle East could still fall apart. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't count any of these chickens before they hatch. But the knock-on effect, I think, will be that, like what we're seeing in the EU, where they're like, okay, hold on a second. We do need to pay for defense. We are going to have to be strong. We're in a new era. Putin really did invade a sovereign nation. And I hope that they wake up to, and by the way, you guys sweated him. And so don't be surprised that as NATO keeps threatening to essentially, the way he would see it, NATO invaded Georgia, NATO invaded Crimea. And so it's like, I've got to take him before you guys, they were threatening to. I've got to take him before you guys do. And same obviously with Ukraine. Yeah. So if once you start playing that lens, it's like, okay, you're never going to make all these problems go away. Everybody's doing what's in their self-interest. Self-interests are not always aligned, but I do think people are going to realize, okay, we tried the open border experiment. That really isn't working. That values matter. And so the Middle East, being Middle Eastern, makes sense to me. The Middle East not wanting a bunch of Americans to run over and try to bring American values makes sense to me. But also people in England not wanting Sharia law makes sense to me. I don't want Sharia law in America. So it's like, yeah, you're going to have to stand up for what you believe in. That means boundaries. That means saying no. That means supporting people. And we're going to be asked that question. Do we have the backbone to say, no, America's legitimate? Whether you like that we went after a much weaker Mexican army, battered them and stole land from them, if you're not prepared to stand up for that, it will happen to you. And so it's going to be a whole bunch of fuck around to find out. I do not expect people to walk out of a Trump term, no matter how successful he is, going, that's the right way and that's what we want to do. But I think that there will be more of a push towards people saying, okay, some of these, being strong, having a backbone, saying this is my red line, and then actually responding does work.
It seems like if I had to build a country, our global policy should kind of look like fascism, strong man. I'm going to body him around. The federal composition should look like capitalism. The individual household should look like socialism.
Interesting. I have such a negative connotation with fascism. I don't know how you intertwine.
Yeah, I don't know. There might be a better word than that.
I think the honest answer is these things move in cycles. It is way more fun to be in an expansionist, globalist moment. The problem is we don't know how to solve for that. It guts individual countries and feeds into the mustache twirling villain side of capitalism, where it's like, I don't have to care about the people in Michigan. I'll just outsource this to China, Japan, whatever. And if that's bad for you, it is what it is. It's better for consumers. So on that side, you just move through these moments where as things are getting cheaper, it feels really good. As people are losing their jobs, though, it feels really bad. And you start that divide. And when that divide plays out, then you have to be a bit more strongman because you have this horrendous divide. But I don't know that we want to over-celebrate that.
Somebody asked in the chat earlier, and I forgot to ask them. Capitalism is built on inequality. It's a way that it has to function. There has to be inequality for the system to win. Is that a negative? Is that a wrong assessment?
That is a wrong assessment in that it doesn't feed off of inequality. What ends up happening is the impulse that people have to do the innovating feeds off of the desire to be ahead of everybody else.
Say that one more time.
Capitalism itself does not feed off of inequality, but the mechanism that drives people to work maniacal hours and to out-innovate somebody else and to not choose a life of leisure is that they can pull ahead of everybody else. So they can get nicer things. So that impulse actually gives you an incredible world. You have to guard against, once somebody makes it up into the tree, if their impulse is to pull up the ladder so you can join them, that's the problem. The pulling up the ladder is the problem. The fact that the guy wanted to climb, not a problem.
Yeah.
So you're always going to have inequality in that humans just have different talents, including the desire to pursue more, including the discipline to be able to stay focused, all of that. It's always going to happen. Capitalism doesn't need that. Like if people were willing to work really hard, try to create all the innovation in the world, it would still work. They just won't. If they can't win, if I can't win this thing, compete and win, it won't happen. Like playing Fortnite is fun because I can win against other people, and that I have the emotion I want to have when I win. And honestly, the emotion when I lose is intense, and I don't want to lose and I want to win. And so that's what makes it fun. So I'm intentionally putting myself in this position where if I train and I get better, I can beat this person. So your beef is with nature or God, however you want to think about it, that put that algorithm in our brain. It is not a problem with capitalism itself. It's baked way deeper than that.
Interesting. Can we do another poll in the chat?
Let's
Mason?
go.
Yep.
The poll is going to be, do you talk about politics when you date? Should you talk about politics when you date?
Yeah.
When you
Should
date.
you?
Got it.
When you date. Yes or no?
Is it wise, chat? Is it wise to talk about politics when you date?
Yeah, that might be a better way to frame it. Dating is fun nowadays. These are 2 screenshots that people have.
That's
shared
sarcasm.
recently. Somebody said hi. Another person said hi. Do you support Palestine? Is that typically how you start a conversation? This is another one that happened. Hey, just confirming we're good for tonight. See you at 8:30 at Little Rebel. Hey, yeah, that still works. But I just wanted to ask one thing to make sure we're on the same page and not waste time. Did you vote for Zaran for mayor? I'm really excited he won. Your reservation has been canceled.
That is hysterical.
Super curious. Personally, I haven't ran into this where like, tell me what your political position is. But at the same time, I feel like people look at me and assume what my political positions are.
Interesting.
And also
Because you're black?
because I'm black and because I live in LA. So yeah, that's like a double Democrat.
That's a double whammy, yeah.
So I never had that position to be asked. But I don't know. Like, do you and Lisa don't talk about politics?
Not much. First of all, she's not super interested in it, but we did have one collision. She was mortified that I voted for Trump. So we certainly talked about like, here's my thinking, because she saw it as an attack on women, which is her like core fucking identity level issue. So she was certainly not here for that. And I was like, yeah, I understand every beef that you have with him on that front. Here is mechanistically why I voted for that, why I think it's going to be better for more people. And so she at least could get to the point where she understood where I was coming from. Doesn't mean that she's going to agree with me, but we both have so much earned respect over time with each other. We know our intentions. We know what we're trying to do. And so like we know what we're trying to do in life in terms of make things better for people. So I wish that people could see that this is a proxy for mapping your values. And that is good because you want to make sure that you connect on deep level values. But politics very quickly stops being about the actual values and becomes like a hologram of your values. Now, if you drilled a layer deeper and said, why did you or did you not vote for that person? So I can see like if we disagree, like you and I, it can look a lot of times like we have huge disagreements about the capitalist system. But the reality is we're more disagreeing about either a nuance of what's actually causing it or a nuance about how to fix it. But we don't argue about where we're trying to go. Like we are both trying to get to a system in which people are able to compete and win, but a system that does not metastasize and take advantage of people, pull up the ladder just to short circuit it. So it's like, depending on where we're at when we're having the conversation, we either think that we disagree wildly or we're like, oh, I actually see that we both agree on the thing that I would say in a relationship matters, which is the deep value of how life ought to be. And so if you disagree on how you get there, that's good because in a relationship, you don't want to think the same. You want to share the deep core values and then you want to be advantageous to each other because you can challenge each other's thinking, but not get lost in a big argument, which is what most people do.
Oh, so far it's at 69 to 31. Yes, it is wise to talk about politics when you date. It is wise. It is wise. Yes.
Wow. Wait, the whole poll? Show me the poll.
70%.
No.
70 now?
70% yes.
Of our audience?
Yes.
The people in our chat?
Yes. Should talk.
You should.
But then there's also multiple people.
Of course not.
Of course not.
What are you talking about? I just literally just said, get to the deeper value. Don't get stuck on the...
Kip Moon has a good one.
Let's go.
They said yes because it can destroy relationships and you and your partner aren't on the same page and get deep into a relationship and discover you have very opposing beliefs.
No, Kip Moon.
I would take a slight sidestep that it can reveal deeper values.
No, it can't. It is the thing that will confuse you from seeing the deeper values.
So you're saying start with the values, then talk politics.
Yes.
Don't talk politics. Then
yes. Because if we're both like, oh, like just to bring it back to economics, if we're both like, oh, we need a thriving middle class. Oh, we need something that really incentivizes people to work hard and innovate, and innovation is so important. And we know that we need to educate people, and we know that you should never be trapped by your zip code. Like, that would be absurd. And then we like lay our cards down on the table, and one's like, I'm deep blue, and the other person's like, I'm independent, whatever. And you're like, wait, what? So you didn't realize you had a problem until you looked at the label at the top. What does that matter? Like, drill down, get to like, what do we fundamentally believe? The problem is the political party, the policy is a heuristic. It's a shortcut. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, oh, maybe the heuristic is just we disagree on how to get there. Yeah. Like, for instance, take Stop Killing Games. We very much disagree on how to improve the game industry, but I get what they want to do. So like, hey, let's really talk about what's the principle driving this. I pay money for a thing. I should own that thing. Or it should be advertised that I don't own this and I'm just renting it, and then I can make a different buying decision. Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. Cool. So let's build out what that looks like. But you need to start with, what is the end goal that we're trying to achieve? What is the value system that drives our desire to end up at that? And then we can debate, hopefully in good faith, about how we actually get there. But this also comes back to people just trust themselves too much. People trust themselves to be right. So they don't want people that dissent.
Robert Zerby said, how do you even know the person if you don't talk politics? Wow.
Ask values.
Wow.
Like, really get into, also there are a lot more interesting questions. Yeah. Like, am I going to inevitably talk politics before I propose to somebody? Sure. Just because it's a hot button issue. Like, the way that I would treat the like, this is going to be radioactive part is I would deep into the relationship when a ton of trust has been established, when I understand their value system. Okay. Because I'm going to get to value system right away so that I'm not wasting time. Again, the values, not the surface level holographic projection of the values as represented by the heuristic of what party or whatever, but like really getting into the values. But if I want to get to the spicy take stuff, I'm going to wait till there's been trust built up. And then, as I would do with my wife and I would show up with, I'm talking sometimes like 100+ questions. And this is when we're traveling. So we've got like 4 days or whatever. Yeah. And I would just go through like, oh, what do you think about this? Now, full disclosure, my questions were never about politics. They were always about sex. But like, I was always asking like the fucking craziest questions. Like, what would you do in this situation? What would you do if you found out about this? Yeah. Like, that kind of stuff to me is super fun because I was not politically awake at all. But like, okay, cool. Now in that moment where it's like, oh, we've really got rapport. Oh, we really agree on like deep fundamental values. Oh, we've established protocols for how to deal when we think the other person is crazy. And so we can navigate through to, I believe you're a good person. I believe you have good intentions. We really don't see eye to eye on this. So now let's have that fun conversation. Mm-hmm. And then you have to have an eject button. If things are like getting too crazy, you want to make sure that you can like get out of it so you don't like end up in a fight over something that should just be more interesting. And then look, if politics is like your core reason for existing and you're like, I just love talking about politics, but I only want to talk about politics with people that agree with me. Okay, cool. Then that's like being into BMX. And if that person's, or gaming, if that person's not a gamer and you only want to be with a gamer, okay, cool. Then it's like, this is my thing. This is my favorite hobby and you're not into my hobby. And so fuck off. But as long as you understand that you're doing it at that level and that you probably don't even understand their full value set, they probably don't even understand their full value set. And what a fun thing to explore together.
Kaizen Kai on X said, political party is the book title. Values is the content of the book. Don't judge a book based on its title. Very well said.
I love that, Kaizen. Very well said.
Okay, but what about like speed running red flags?
Yeah.
Because there is something to, I remember we had the 36 questions to fall in love. I tried it. We got through like question 24, 25. Yeah. And it kind of like, we decided we were probably on different pages. We should be friends. And I think that going through those questions kind of highlighted certain answers. I was like, it wasn't that I don't like them or I'm judging them or I have a checkbook or nothing, but I was just like, okay, yeah, our culture's on the line there. Okay, I can see a conflict there. And you start to see that your values might not be compatible with a person.
Speed running red flags is what old people do. It is a terrible strategy. And this is why people should fall in love young, if you can. Not stupid young, but young. where you're going to be able to shape each other over time. The reality is that Lisa and I, on paper, were a never-ending string of red flags for each other. All of her friends were like, whoa, that's not a guy that you would normally go for. And so they were very confused. And my thing was, she was religious. She was from a foreign country. Just like, she probably had more red flags on me than I had on her, if I'm being completely honest. But nonetheless, take religion as the biggest potential red flag for me. And I was like, oh, well, I just want to know, like, from a true open-minded curiosity standpoint, where she's at. And so we were both at a place in our lives where we were not trying to win the other person over. We were just trying to be aggressively ourselves in like a fun, flirty way. And then you see where it goes. And so not like, because a lot of the energy that I feel off people in dating now is they come in like this. And it's like, I want to check off these red flags and I'm ready to throw a punch and I'm expecting you to throw a punch at me. And we were like super playful on our first date. Like neither of us had fear of loss. It was like, if this person's not into who I really am, I literally don't care. But this could be fun. We seem to share interests. I definitely find her attractive. She found me attractive. And so it was like, with a playful, flirty attitude, we started exploring things like, oh, why do you believe in God? And so it was like these really fun conversations. I wasn't being accusatory. She wasn't being defensive. It's just like, it's actually a really interesting question. And so as the night wore on, it was like, wow, like we were extending more and more of ourselves to the other person, being like, oh, this is really interesting. Not that it was like, oh, I agree with everything you say. You agree with everything I say. It was like, I find you interesting. Like you're saying things that surprise me. You're saying things that other people don't normally say. You seem to have good intentions. And like, there's the sexual tension, and there's like a weirdness to modern relationships now where people have lost sight of what sex really is. It's going from, hi, my name is Bob, to I'd like to put my penis inside you. It's like this super weird transition that you have to go through, and not acknowledging the truth of like what this is, like being so weird about it, being so standoffish. Like you got to let that play at the edges. You've got to let that sexual tension build, and inside that frame, you start introducing these interesting things. And then if it's like, you guys fuck up the sexual tension because you're coming in with your dukes up, it's like, that doesn't make any sense, man.
Yeah.
Like the game here is to like be playful, be flirty, get to that point where we've got the trust, where we know, is this somebody that I want to move forward with into the bodily fluid swapping space or not? And we've somehow lost like that sense of it.
Like, I'm still on something when you said, speed running red flags is for old people. In that, is that dating isn't any more exploratory or curiosity driven, it's more like transaction driven? Is that like the underlying thing you're saying?
It's, you get to a point where you're like, I am the way that I am. I have so thoroughly mapped myself. I see all these patterns in other people, and it becomes not sort of overtly cynical, but it becomes cynical. It's like, I'm not looking to find out who this nuanced person is. I'm not accepting that they probably don't understand a lot of their own positions. I don't accept that, just like them, I've probably gotten to the point with some of my beliefs where I just know the phrase to say, and I haven't really even explored that belief anymore. And so like Lisa and I will go into an argument. It's not like it's consciously there in my mind, but it's become part of the operating system. Let's say that my wife says something that like comes out rougher than she means it to. And anybody listening would be like, ooh, red flag on Lisa, right? Point to Tom, as if it were a karate match. And I just go, and sometimes we'll catch ourselves in the moment and be like, I shouldn't have said that. And my response to that is, hey, it's not a big deal. I don't want to take that point scored. Dope that you're saying that, but I don't want to take the point scored. The reality is I know who you are. And if you misspoke a little bit in this moment, whatever. And so it's like, if you can go into an early exchange going, there's no way this person's going to be able to represent themselves perfectly in this moment. And so instead of me cataloging red flags and being like, okay, that's one, that's two, that's three, I'm done. It's like, do I feel the playfulness here? Is this person intriguing me? Do I want to spend more time with this person? Oh, that was crazy. But I'm still like, I want to spend time with this. There's something there. And for me, the ephemeral sense, and I can even get this in a job interview, the ephemeral sense of, oh, spending more time with this person would be interesting. And so I don't know if they're right for the job yet, but I know like there's something here, like they're interesting. I want to talk to them more. I want to ask them more questions. This is fascinating. So that's how I would encourage people to approach the first date. You're likely to have solidified down into overly rigid check marks. This person is going to misstate things that over time you will think differently of them. And so if there's any of that playfulness, the flirtiness, now I'm not in the job interview anymore, on the dating scene, then push it, see where it goes. Yeah. But if you're not feeling it, eject. There's no reason to give somebody a second date that you weren't feeling anything.
When did you know that you wanted to marry Lisa?
When she cleaned my couch. It was a total misunderstanding. She was doing it as she was completely disgusted with who I was as a person. But I took it as, oh my God, she's going to take care of me. Like, this is amazing. I walked in the door from work and it worked a long day. I was fucking exhausted, and come in the door and she is on her hands and knees scrubbing my couch, leather couch. And my couch was dirty. And I was like, wow, I think I'm going to marry this woman. And the truth was, she was like, he's so filthy. For me to continue to have a relationship with him, I have to clean this couch, because we sit on the floor in front of the couch and this is no way to live. But I didn't know that. So I just took it as something else. Now we absolutely laugh about it. But that was the first time I thought, oh, I'm going to marry her.
And what time frame was that?
I proposed after 8 months. So that was probably around 6 months was when I was like,
6 months of dating. Last follow-up question. Were you guys like, we met on Monday, July 1st, and then like we were inseparable for 6 months? Or was it like we had a date once a week, twice a week? Like, how often did you
We went on our first date on October 3rd, and we have been inseparable from that day.
Wow.
Never looked back, never texted another girl. Oh, well, texting didn't even exist back then. Never went on another date. Nothing. That was it. Done.
Awesome.
Now, it wasn't that I was in love at first sight. I certainly wasn't. But
yeah, you said that intrigue just kind of.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, I want to go out with her again tomorrow. And tomorrow became the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day and all of that. And we had the good fortune. This is a different era, but we had the good fortune of our relationship was a little bit illicit in the beginning. She was 21. I was 24. It's very important to say that first. But she was my student. And so I remember the next day, she gave me some look in the hallway that I was like, you need to be careful. And so I pulled her into the elevator and I said, you're going to give the game away. And it was so flirtatious and just like there was so much electricity because we couldn't get caught. It was awesome. It was awesome. And yes, I am well aware if we did it today, it's a Me Too story. But at the time, boy, was it was sexy.
See, they got it easy back in the day. That's what I'm telling you.
Bro, on this one, I will give you fully. Because think about it.
I'm joking.
This is not a joke. This is one of the things I think people need to get to the other side of. The reality is women are hypergamous. They date over and up. So they are turned on by power. To this day, forgive me all, to this day, when Lisa sees me like really leading, doing something in this context, I get that reward over the weekend. Let there be no mistake. She fucking loves that shit. So she loves to see me be strong, to be powerful, to be me at my best. And I love to teach. I'm good at teaching. And so I'm, 24. Not a lot of things I'm good at 24, but I'm good at that. And so she gets to see me at my best. She gets to see me in an area where the entire room is focused on me. Mm-hmm. And so there's this sense of like, I'm being slightly elevated in some small corner of Los Angeles. There's 20 students, but nonetheless, that setup created a dynamic that made me look phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And so it started us off on the right foot.
Nice.
And that has more or less been taken from people. That shit is looked at so sideways now. Crazy.
I think we got a super chat.
We do. Marusha Dark said, Hormozy says that smart, competent people do nothing because not only have they been not rewarded, they've been actively punished for doing the right thing. How do you find the fuel to make it out of the desert without support?
Smart, competent people do nothing? There's got to be more context to that. The smart, competent people that do nothing are people that haven't been rewarded. That I could see. So the thing that has always guided me is I try to get to the physics of any situation. So I try to get to cause and effect. If I can get to cause and effect, then it doesn't matter what other people think. So I say, okay, I want to do this thing. What leads to that thing? And then just do that. So the big breakthrough for anybody that wants to get to the other side of the desert is to, one, understand how economics works, understand how entrepreneurship works, and then have what I call the only belief that matters. And the only belief that matters is if I put time and energy into getting better, I will actually get better. And that if I can get good at something that makes somebody else money, I will control my destiny forever. And people don't like that that's true. And so we're in a moment where people don't like that that's true. They have an emotional reaction to it and they go in the opposite direction. And I'm just saying, acknowledge the way the world works and then decide if you're going to do the things that you need to do to meet the demands that your goals make. If you're willing and able to meet the demands that your goals make, nobody can stop you. And so Kobe Bryant, again, another dinosaur from an old era, but the Mamba mentality is the only mentality if you want to be successful. And that is, I'll outwork anybody. And if you have the intellectual horsepower such that you reap tremendous benefits from working hard, even a system designed to hold you back can be circumvented. Period. End of story. If you are good enough, there is no system that can stop you. That just full stop. So let's go all the way to the Nazi death camps. So obviously there are going to be some people, they just don't make it out. But when you really look at the averages, there was a guy in there named Viktor Frankl. And he said what really killed people, oddly enough, wasn't so much the Nazis. It was that people stopped having a will to live. And he wrote a phenomenal book about it called Man's Search for Meaning. And he talks about how despite losing all of his family, despite being in those horrendous conditions for God knows how many years, he was one of the people that managed to survive and come out the other side. And he said you could predict within 72 hours when somebody would die because you would see they gave up. He said once they gave up, their body would quit. If that's true, and the human animal is such that giving up can literally kill you in the right circumstances, and knowing what you're fighting for will carry you through the most horrendous circumstances, and there are stories just like that from the Russian gulags, then you know that getting your mind right is the number one thing you have to focus on. So people, this is a Nietzsche quote, a man with a strong enough why can survive almost any how. If you know why you're doing something, no matter how hard it gets, you'll keep going.
Any why can survive anyhow. Okay, that makes sense. That kind of reminds me of the interview we did with Hormozy at the beginning of this year. Plug. Where I think the first question was like, why aren't smart people successful or something like that? And then I remember his line was something about like they're so used to working in a system they don't try new things, or they analysis paralysis. Like there's so many like, oh, I have to do this and this because school taught me, and they're used to kind of that thing, you know, when you make a
the dip, valley despair.
No, like when you wear like a track.
Oh, a rut.
Rut, thank you. They're so caught up in that rut of this is how I'm supposed to think, this is what I've been taught to think, and they kind of don't think of new ideas.
The frame of reference is totally messed up. And then also right now, we're telling people not to value aggression. We're telling people that capitalism is broken. Don't go be a filthy mustache twirling villain. There is a lot of frame of reference problems right now.
Yeah. There's a lot of like, how do I maintain? I was talking to a buddy of mine and he was,
how do I maintain what?
Like, how do you maintain in life? Because I think another issue for this socialist like uprising is people are tired. And I realize that life is a marathon and it's going to take a bunch of miles and you can't be mad at mile 5 because you still got 21 more to go. But how do you motivate yourself? How did you stay motivated when?
For me, it's very simple.
Yeah.
Because I have the only belief that matters, so I can get good at anything that I put my time and attention on. And I actually really want the outcomes that I can imagine. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Project Kaizen for a second. Project Kaizen is the hardest learning curve I've ever gone on. So building a video game is insanely complicated. Mm-hmm. And I literally was starting from scratch. I had no idea how to do it. I made every mistake that you can make. I was working 120 hours a week for 8 months. I was damaging my marriage just because a marriage takes time. And when you're working 120 hours a week, you're not putting any time into it.
Shout out to all the subs on Twitch. I see you guys. Thank you, everybody, for the subs. Thank you for the subs.
What just happened? Did somebody do a community sub? They must have. If somebody just did that, God bless you. Thank you for that.
LeBlanc.
What's that? LeBlanc
gifted 25 subs.
Let's go, LeBlanc.
Hold on. LeBlanc is the man in all capital letters. LeBlanc, you have no idea how often I think about you with Kaizen. I am building things specifically for you. There's a small handful of people like you. You guys know who you are. Man, do I think about you guys. Okay, so I'm building this game, hardest learning curve, damaging my marriage, all of that. Why keep doing it? And the answer is because I believe that I can learn it and get good at it. And if I actually can learn it and get good at it, then I can build a multi-billion-dollar empire telling stories, impacting kids in the way that they think, getting them excited about a value system that makes sense, that I'm literally, I want to build Ready Player One. Like that's the vision. And so the thought of being able to do that, dude, I have the chills right now. That is so exciting to me. Now, I worry that I'm a super responder, that just the roll of the dice that I got, when I imagine a future that excites me and then think I can actually make that come true. From the time I was a little kid, I used to just fantasize, one day I'm going to be rich. One day I'm going to be rich. And it got me so excited. I would get the way that I feel right now. Like, oh my God, this might actually come true. Okay, I know this is just the way my brain works. I apologize. It is the same way I felt when I was like 16 and I was like, one day, Drew, I'm actually going to put my penis inside of a woman. That's going to be the craziest thing. Like, I remember thinking it's actually going to be real one day. And it lived up to the hype. And so it's like life is a series of, hey, this thing might be really hard to do, but if you can get there, it's awesome. And so I also know better. I don't build my self-esteem around achieving it. I build my self-esteem around pursuing it sincerely, being willing to sacrifice, work hard, try to get better, face my inadequacies so that I know how to improve. But if you don't want it badly enough, if you're not excited about it, if you aren't persistent, because you're going to fail a lot, you're going to get laughed at a lot. And if you're not able to push through all of that stuff because you really want it and believe that you can get there, you will quit.
Nice, man. That was good. Somebody said somebody clip this. Man, that was 2 clip requests from the audience.
You're the somebody, Mason.
Let's go.
You're the somebody.
I shall do so.
Let's go.
Somebody just said go live on the ranch. Okay, that was weird.
And some people would love that. Like, hey, don't be very careful who you take life advice from. If you don't want my life, don't follow my advice.
Amen.
That is
Amen.
very, very true. So yeah, be very thoughtful. What is the life that you want? Who has already achieved it? Then go ask them how to achieve it. So if you want to know how to run companies, if you want a dope marriage, I got you. If you want to raise children well, I'll pop off about it, but I don't have kids, so I'm not the guy to model yourself after.
Mentally dope. People are tired, brother. They're genuinely the biggest energy I feel from people. It hurts. I'm tired too, for sure. But like NBA Youngboy says, got to hold it down as a man. And I think that's the vibe that I'm getting is like, I understand the only belief that matters. I understand the pursuit and the journey is better than the destination.
Yep.
But sometimes in that journey, man.
Okay, so Drew, the second belief that only matters is that I can control my neurochemistry. There's 2 types of energy. Mm-hmm. Energy type number 1 is cellular. So you're producing ATP. Your mitochondria produces ATP. Mm-hmm. You got to address that. But energy type number 2, and this is very real, is psychological. It's purely frame of reference. And so if people understand that you can take control of both of those systems, eat right, work out, sleep, cellular. Second one, get yourself excited. If you have a hype song, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You put that song on, you feel different. So you at least know how to manipulate your psychological energy system. Now can you take control of it? You hear me talk about this a lot off camera. I've talked about it a couple times on camera. I refuse to give in to the cynicism. So I can feel myself being pulled towards it, which is weird for me because I'm very optimistic. So I've got this weird, my optimism collides with actually learning the cause and effect of how the world works. And you realize how much darkness there is to that just true cause and effect. And so I can feel the beckoning of the abyss trying to pull me in. And I just make a conscious decision that I'm going to shift my mind. I'm going to force myself to be optimistic. I'm going to force myself to say positive things. I'm going to force myself to make those things real by mapping out, okay, if I had to be positive every day, what are the things that I would start focusing on that are real, that will actually add up to something? And you're like, well, if I actually think about that. And then it's like, okay, cool. And I find that, if I steer by what makes me feel expansive, it's already putting me in a good direction. which is part of the reason why you see that recent poll that shows liberals are more, they have more mental illness and unhappiness across like every metric that you can measure than people that tend to be more conservative. And that should cue people in. And I think the reason is that the left is out of compassion. They're just seeing problem. It's very constrictive. It pulls you in. It doesn't have that like, we can do it mentality. And so it's like, you got to shift yourself out of that, consciously force yourself to adopt we can do it. Like, we can really pull this off. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but we can do it. And when you have that, and this is, I think, why Obama felt so good.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Like, it really, like, I remember, this is the weirdest story ever. But when when it was official and he won, I was standing in the LAX airport next to Jared Leto, and we were all just staring up at the TV screen, watching it become official. And it felt so awesome. I felt so good. And I was like, this feels so hopeful, so expansive. And so, unfortunately, that has switched, but you want to now get to the part where whatever you believe, it feels expansive. And so, whether it's a left or right thing, whether it's a private life, public life, whether it's your romance, your kids, your work, whatever, you've got to find that thing that makes you feel like hopeful, optimistic, I can do this. You want to ground it, because otherwise you're going to burn out and the energy is going to start to feel fake. So you want to ground it in something real. This is my obsession with cause and effect. But you do want to say, okay, if I know that optimism works, if I know that that's a necessary ingredient for psychological energy, and I need that psychological energy to push me forward, it's like, where do I focus my energy? I tell people all the time, you can't stop the first thought that you have. So you might have a negative thought, but you can stop the second. You don't have to let yourself repeat that negative thing over and over and over. And so you build the mental jujitsu inside of your own brain to use a negative thought as a habit loop trigger for a positive thought.
Enough said. Mic drop.
There it is. Oh, shit. We're over time. All right, everybody. God bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next time. Make sure you check out that deep dive that we got coming up. It's amazing. If you're not already in the Project Kaizen community, get in it. LeBlanc, hopefully I will see you later today. I'm so excited for you guys to see what we built, and you guys are going to be such a big part of the future. I can't wait. All right. Until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace.